District attorney went off the rails. Innocent until proven guilty. Never came out of his mouth. That is outrageous. We are outraged. Before any trial has occurred, he announced the defendant's theory of the case is a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. That is outrageous. We are outraged. He provided a false notice of discovery, claiming he did not know. We now know that was a lie. That is outrageous. We are outraged. This court should be outraged. Everyone should be outraged. That is outrageous. We are outraged. District attorney went off the rails. Innocent until proven guilty. Never came out of his mouth. That is outrageous. We are outraged. He provided a false notice of discovery, claiming he did not know. We now know that was a lie. That is outrageous. We are outraged. This court should be outraged. Everyone should be outraged. That is outrageous. We are outraged. That is outrageous. We are outraged. This court should be outraged. Everyone should be outraged. Outraged. That is outrageous. We are outraged.
Hello everyone, how are you all? Let me see what we got happening here. We're all up. Hello Amber E. Hello Deva's Rehome Memory. That's a good nickname. Naja, hello. Out and About with Diane. How are you all? So, I have a pretty good guess. Amber E, you the OG. You've been around for a long time. For those who don't know, Amber E is who helped me read some of the text messages. Amber and another OG from Suzanne Morphew. Anyway, she's been around for a long time. So hello to Amber. And Lon Solo's in the house. How's it going? Pez, how's it going? I see we got control of our YouTube handles again. Hello, Marjorie Smith. All right. Guys, something really cool happened this week. Hi, Daniel James. Something really cool happened. So they're the main people behind the fundraising for Karen Reid. Like, I think they controlled a lot of. They're the main people who started the fundraising. Nick Rocco and his wife Jen. He joined X. Because I don't really use Facebook anymore. He joined X and started sharing some stuff that we've never seen before. Stuff that never came out in trial. Stuff that defense collected, and obviously their investigator, private investigator. So, yeah, interesting. If I seem a little If I seem a little stally with talking today, it's because, first of all, I've had such a busy day and I'm really, really tired. I don't know why I had insomnia last night. I wake up like every hour on the hour. So I'm a little tired, but also giving up smoking at the moment. So a little anxious and a little tired. Hey, Matt. Matt's in the house. Another OG. Thanks for hanging out with us, Matt. Now, I have forgotten to send a link. No, I didn't forget to send a link. Okay. I'm pretty sure the supermod's in bed, so that's fine. So anyway, Nick Rocco has shared a heap of stuff, and I thought this would be a really interesting thing. Let's have a look at some stuff that Nick Rocco has shared, and then we'll get into the main story that I wanted to cover. But I thought that this was all very interesting, and everybody who doesn't have an X account will be very interested in seeing it. So let's. So it starts out with, just some pictures of them going to and from court and doing stuff and exercising in the hotel room. Let me get the volume up so you guys can hear it. And we'll chuck it on big screen.
Those things up because you want to get your back going in the opposite. That's going to stretch the vertebrae and the muscles and the ligaments around it. I'm telling you, in that
you're gonna at home.
Oh yeah, they're wonderful.
Yeah, that's good.
Say hi to Mom and Dad.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
Alan hurt himself.
AJ, those things up because you want to.
I love those things. They're so awesome if you have a cookback. Get all the electronics away from your bed. I don't have any electronics near my bed, I don't think. I'm not sure what you're talking about, the giving up smoking part. Oh, insomnia part. I gotcha. Good on you, Ozzy. I quit a year ago and it sucked till it didn't anymore. Yeah, so I'm going through the it sucks stage. So bring on the till it doesn't anymore. Bring it on. I do have some herb tobacco. It's just I think it's called Wild Lettuce from Honey Rose is the company. It's menthol flavored herb lettuce. It tastes ridiculous, but it gets me through the so I've got two habits I need to break. I need to get past the physical addiction to the nicotine, and then I've got to get over the physical habit of doing this, like social stuff, drinking a coffee, having a chat, and wanting to have the cigarette. So I bought the herb stuff for that. So I'm at the let's get rid of the nicotine addiction part. So and then we'll see where we go from here. For those who don't know, Australia just, basically gave me no choice. I was going to be going through changing the taste of my cigarettes anyway because they just banned menthol. They say it disguises the taste of tobacco. Well, I'll tell you what doesn't disguise is the taste of freaking lettuce, bush lettuce. So I don't know how it was disguising the taste of tobacco, but it was a far more pleasant taste. And I was going to have to go through that whole taste change anyway. I figured it might as well be with the lettuce. So we'll see how that goes. But it is making me a little vacant in the head and hard to keep up with things. So excuse me while I vacate on you occasionally. So yeah, this is interesting. So that's obviously not entirely all that interesting, but here we've got Alan and I think it's Alessi looking at the x-rays. So, clearly they knew about the x-rays. Interesting. So, some court photos that we didn't see happening, the small room after the verdict, the small courtroom after the verdict. So where they were clearly very pleased with the verdict. So this was before Alan Jackson knew that Nikki cut hair. Right, Nick Rocco's a hairdresser. Once he found that out, he never looked back. Interesting. If you rightio. So all right, so some interesting stuff with the basement, the bulkhead steps. The basement floor, like this is really interesting. So we heard Brian Albert testify that he replaced the basement floor, and this is just the team going over the basement floor, basically.
And once you get done with that, now Paul, inside that room is some flooring, correct?
Yep.
Or is it? Let me look. No, there's no flooring. All right, so basically every single part of this part of the basement, of this part of the house, the flooring's been taken up. I mean, all of this, it's just hodgepodge, right? It just looks like it was thrown down. So the actual floor was ripped up, and this is just a hodgepodge of plywood. All the way through here.
Yep.
Yeah, the entire floor was ripped out. And then this goes into a storage area it looked like this area did not have flooring in it to begin with, but all this is it looks to be relatively recent plywood.
It does.
Are you getting enough light to actually get this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's interesting. This is the floor leading from the bathroom. It's just a different snippet. It's a different height, I think, is the point there. See, it's a different height. And then this is the bulkhead area. Let me just make sure that we got the volume on it.
Okay, will that door open? Paul, come take a look at this. This is the bulkhead door. Look at that.
Yeah.
Directly into the backyard. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Get an establishing shot from over there, and I'll get out of the picture.
This is the photo that we saw of the bulkhead door. He's taking that shot now.
This hasn't been used in a while.
Okay. I don't think we need to go up and pull the bulkhead up, but
Okay.
no. Okay, will that door open?
They do actually end up going up the stairs into the bulkhead. So this is the carpet that they intercepted coming out of the house. And it has been confirmed it's not the basement carpet, so which I had presumed it was not. Just by looking at the interior of the house when it was sold, there was no carpet in the basement. So I knew that it wasn't going to be basement carpet. There's a couple of other hints. I can't remember, but I did have some other hints. We'll get to the DA that got disbarred in a minute, Goldfish. I had a dog dig a hole in a spot at the door threshold. Yay, lovely. Dogs are good for that shit, aren't they? Nick says, seems like the defense knows how to handle evidence better than the CPD and the MSP. So he rolled out some brown paper by the looks of things, and oh, what's that? Is that a stain? What is that? Interesting. Huh. No wonder they started collecting this shit. I mean, everything's freaking sus in this house, right? After court, the work never ended, so they'd just continue working, obviously. I mean, I can't imagine how busy they were with all the curveballs that were being thrown at them during court. You know, they get the discovery from the prosecution. Well, what discovery the prosecution feels like giving them, but they don't know, you know, where it's going to go and how it's going to go. So obviously there's a lot of work to do as each curveball gets chucked at you.
The test that formed the basis of their entire theory of the case by Dr. Welcher.
Sorry, I'll fix the volume for you. This is AJ practicing his closing argument.
The test that formed the basis of their entire theory of the case by Dr. Welcher. Dr. Welcher tried to deceive and fool you by leaning into a car and manipulating the results of his own paint test. When the truth was revealed by Dr. Rentschler, the Commonwealth spent an hour cross-examining him on how that test was just meaningless. It didn't represent the theory of the case? Really? That didn't represent the Commonwealth's theory of the case? Then why was Dr. Welcher playing dress-up in John O'Keefe's clothes? Why was he holding a glass? Why was he standing with his right arm oriented to the right rear taillight? The Commonwealth stood up here with a straight face and told you they weren't trying to suggest that's how John was hit. Of course that's what they were trying to suggest. That's their theory of the case. They only abandoned it 2 days ago when it was revealed by our experts that it's physically impossible. That silent witness has become pesky.
Dude, the dude's a powerhouse. The dude is an absolute powerhouse. Let me just look at the comments again. The one little patch, it's all suspicious. Yeah, it's all suspicious, exactly. Where did that rug come from? Laurie Jean, the rug came from inside the house. So from what I could tell in just looking at the Zillow photos when they sold the house, they replaced the rug at the stairs. So the house was all tiles, and then in the living rooms on either wing, either side of the house, were I think laminated floorboards. The stairs and all upstairs were carpeted. So that's where all the carpet came from. I presume the stairs. I think that maybe some of the stairs in the I think maybe some part of the basement may have been carpeted at some stage, but that's not that carpet. And you can tell because the stairs were carpeted. So but that rug came from the stairs and the upstairs, I think. Alan turns around and grabs a ham sandwich dramatically. I bet there's dog hair on that carpet. Yeah, but there's supposed to be dog hair on that carpet. It's literally meant to be because that's where the dog lived. But it does give them a sample of hair to compare with. I don't know, maybe the socks, if there was any hair on the socks. God damn it. But anyway, where are we? What's next? More on the basement.
finger. I mean, there's nothing to open this.
Wow.
And look at that. There's the door directly to the basement. This is. I'm gonna pace it off. Let's say we come up from here.
Okay.
This is the door that we opened earlier. Right here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 paces. And look where it goes.
It's a straight shot.
You open this door.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
The only thing
Right there.
I'm thinking about how deep was the snow. But then again, it was pretty
It was a
fluffy.
dusting.
Yeah.
Look where the car was parked. It covers everything from the gate with the chief's house, or whatever his name is. I can't remember his name. The whatever chief's house. But look, that's where the car was parked.
It was a dusting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what, 6 inches? This door opens on 6 inches of
Plus,
snow.
they're pretty motivated and they're pretty strong and they're pretty blunt.
And look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. "24 paces.
Yeah. I like the theory.
And look at the cover.
Yeah.
Look at the cover. This is, you can't. The only time you're exposed is the last 10 feet.
You know, it's like you said, if everybody's leaving the party, nobody sees them out there.
It's because you wasn't out there yet.
Yeah.
You wasn't out there yet. Straight shot. I had no idea. Straight shot right from the basement, the back of this door, right there. Like profiles. Did you get all the shots you need?
It did, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's where we're at.
What was on that cement?
Interesting, hey? Very interesting indeed. I'm good, thanks, Goldfish. How are you? That's why there were no socks. That's right, Laurie Jean. I am dying to know who the DA is. That was disbarred. Oh, we'll get to that. I'll get to that. It's not DA Morrissey, but we'll come back to that. We're going to get into it shortly. Sorry. I just wanted to show you guys some of the stuff that we hadn't seen in the Karen Reid case yet. So give me just a few more minutes and we'll get to who was disbarred. This is the paint.
Maybe, maybe not. The point is, it's never been sampled.
Yeah.
Never sampled.
Okay.
Okay.
So what we're doing here and just going over this stuff is just a little brush over, you know, what wasn't done, because we're starting to see now, like they couldn't say a lot about what wasn't done in the case. What was it that the DA had control over? Oh, these things all count, because the case that I'm about to read to you gets into how ethics and all that sort of stuff actually does fall on the DA's shoulders. It doesn't just fall on Proctor's shoulders. It does fall on the DA's shoulders as well. And we're going to find out to what extent, you know, that the DA should be held accountable for some of these things. So don't get me going about the socks again. We're not going to go with the sock. We're not going to do the shoes either, all right? I promise. Hey, Joanna. Thanks for joining us. So there you go. There's a little bit of catch up on some of the things that we didn't see in the trial. Why? Because Auntie Bev didn't want us to see those things in the trial. Why didn't she want us to see those things? Well, I don't know, maybe because how do we do this to DA Morrissey? Well, here's the point, damn, and that's the whole reason we're doing this, because Massachusetts does have a process, just like this state has a process. But here's the thing: who gets behind the process? That's the telling factor here. I understand some of it comes back to politics. So when you're in a traditionally blue state, for as long as I've ever known, I don't know what the history of Massachusetts being a blue state is, but traditionally a blue state and a blue DA, then obviously they're not going to get behind anything to get rid of that DA. Whereas the case I'm going to read is traditionally, I think, a red state, or I don't know if you could call it traditional. It's had its ebbs and flows, but was a red state. And this DA was a Republican. And then I think the state started switching towards blue. And it was in that switch period that she was disbarred. So from 20, I forget the dates for, Amber, help me out. What dates are we looking at here? From the start of the prosecution of Barry Morphew through to DA getting disbarred. So anyway, it's Linda Stanley who we're talking about, DA for Chaffee County. So let's get over to, I shared that tab. So, well, actually, before I do the documents, let's have a listen to, before we do the document. But in the document, I'm going to get into the weeds a bit. So we'll do all the fluff first, but I'm going to get into the weeds on, what types of things DA Stanley did versus what types of things DA Morrissey did, and then how the Supreme Court viewed those things that, Stanley did, and what sanctions they felt were appropriate for those things. But let's do some quick videos, a couple of minutes each, just to get some background, okay? This one is a summary of a 40-page reply Linda Stanley put in during her prosecution. Yes, your state, Sue, Colorado. This was her 40-page, but this is just a news reader saying what was in that 40 pages. So
yeah, in October, the Office of Attorney Regulation Counsel filed a complaint with the Colorado Supreme Court. It alleges that DA Linda Stanley violated numerous professional rules of conduct for attorneys. This week, Stanley came back with this 42-page response denying the allegations. The majority of the Office of Attorney Regulation Counsel's complaints against District Attorney Linda Stanley pertains to a high-profile Chaffee County murder case. Back in 2021, DA Linda Stanley was prosecuting a murder case against husband Barry Morphew in the disappearance of his wife, Suzanne.
Asked questions, he said he wanted a lawyer, so all questioning ended.
One complaint says the DA appeared on this podcast, Profiling Evil, talking about the now dismissed case against Barry Morphew. Stanley wrote this comment online saying that a body and a weapon aren't needed for a murder conviction. But DA Stanley says none of her comments on the podcast or online affected the court proceedings. Stanley also admitted in her response to the Supreme Court that she launched a domestic abuse investigation into the judge of the Morphew case. Her legal response states she felt Judge Lama was biased against the prosecution in his rulings. So Stanley says she investigated him, which she claims she has a legal right to do. The DA claims the interview with the judge's ex-wife was not intended to influence or intimidate the courts. State regulators claim the pattern of inappropriate statements continued this year in a different case. They point to this July on-camera interview with KRDO 13 Investigates, where Stanley talks about an active murder case and the suspect charged in the 10-month-old baby's death.
He has zero investment in this child. Zero. He's watching that baby so he can get laid. That's it. And have a place to sleep.
But Stanley claims in a response to the court the conversation was off the record. Despite wearing a microphone and being on camera, Stanley claims she didn't know her statements would be made public. The State Attorney Regulation Office says the district attorney knew, or should have known, the interview would have been disseminated by means of public communication. Rio 13 Investigates reached out to Stanley today for comment, but
So essentially, she's got no excuse. She doesn't have any excuse. Chaffee County, thank you, Sue. In 2020, thank you, Amber. Stanley was elected in 2020, so it was a red state at that time. And then it kind of swung to the other direction over that time, didn't it? It was political grandstanding. I still can't believe she went on those podcasts. Indeed, it was. I do have to say, though, I listened to those podcasts and I didn't feel like she said anything like that segment just there where she's talking about that other murder case. I mean, that was definitely out of order. But I didn't feel like she said anything like that about Barry Morphew. So kind of felt like it was a bit of grandstanding on that podcast, because Mike King is obviously a Republican, so conservative, I don't know what you call it. The defendant was just indicted again Friday for first degree. Correct, Sue. Well, that's why we're talking about it. I have been covering this case since Suzanne went missing on Mother's Day 2021, I believe. So not for long, Amber, not for long. There, Burry Morphew. You guys will note when I write about this guy, we call him Barry, Bury, for being buried, because that's what he did to his wife. But if you don't ever see me write Barry, but however you say it in whatever accent you got, that's who I'm talking about. All right, so it all came about because of some texts, apparently, and this is so like I think the grievance that the court held sort of to be the most egregious was investigating the judge that ruled against them. So there were Judge Lama was who oversaw like the first part of the case, and what he did was he dismissed a lot of shit because of her officer's ethics. He dismissed a lot of, I think there were some Brady violations. There was some DNA in the glove box, apparently some a male's DNA in the glove box. They withheld it from the defense, and I think brain's a little shady here. But anyway, the judge basically said you can't use this evidence because you didn't disclose. It's a Brady violation, and your sanction is you can't use it. And then the judge said, the judge was basically doing the right thing, essentially. Watching from British Columbia, Canada. Thank you. No worries, Teresa. And thank you for watching. She messed up a lot of cases, right? It wasn't just this case. So there was a lot of stuff. There was also her actual, she was overlapping some stuff between her finishing up her private practice and taking the position as the DA. So there was some overlapping stuff there. So, but anyway, Judge Lama ruled against her in the discovery. So she decided, this is the text messages, so you can see what came up there.
May go beyond the elected official and involve her entire team of prosecutors, seen in text messages discussing how to go after a judge based on a conspiracy theory, because he was ruling against them in a high-profile murder case. Here's Mark Salinger.
In March of 2022, nearly 2 years after Suzanne Morphew went missing, and almost a year after her husband was charged with her murder, this Change.org petition asked that the judge presiding over the case be removed. It alludes to unfounded conspiracy theories that former Judge Ramsey Lama abused his ex-wife. The same day it was posted online, District Attorney Linda Stanley sent a link in a group text with her team of prosecutors. "You guys might want to read this," she wrote.
Here's the response I received from Mike. I haven't responded yet because I wanted to see if Bob had yet and or make sure we're all on the same page before I answer. Bob says, I called Michael, left him a voicemail. I'm waiting to hear back. Don't know who's...
But I'm not sure how true it is, she added. Lead prosecutor Mark Hurlburt chimes in, saying the judge must be biased. Attorney Bob Weiner says the team should make plans to secretly investigate the judge. Holy crap, yes, let's go after him, Weiner wrote. I can get an investigator on it, Stanley concluded.
It's so wrong.
Judge Ramsey Lama told us last year that he believes Stanley and her team of prosecutors secretly investigated him and his ex-wife based on the conspiracy theory because they didn't like his rulings in the Morphew case.
My ex-wife was followed. Strangers were appearing at her church, following her to a playground with our son.
The Change.org petition was started by this YouTuber. District Attorney Stanley even texted the group saying, she has a YouTube channel. I'm not sure that's a credible source. Even after the sheriff's office declined to investigate former judge...
She has a YouTube channel, and I'm not sure that's a credible source, but she did actually appear on a YouTube channel, right? So, yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I'm not going to say that that's a credible channel. She has a YouTube channel. I'm not sure that's a credible source. So, you know, I'm not sure that any of the YouTube channels are credible sources. They should have used Signal. Good on you, Amber. Hello, Supermod. We have our Supermod on board, so that's what I'm saying hello to, but thanks for joining us, Kev. Yeah. So, yeah, they kind of went out of their way to go after the judge, and this is pertinent because we do have, you know, a lot of people saying in the Karen Reid case, we should go after the judge. And the courts don't take too kindly to going after the judge. But the DA, no problems. I'm going to go through the process, how this got kicked off. It wasn't just OARC that kicked it off. It had to start at the start. So I'm going to go through, you know, step by step. But this is just a background.
That's a credible source. Even after the sheriff's office declined to investigate former Judge Lama because there was no evidence, Stanley sent her own investigator to interview Lama's ex-wife, concluding herself that the conspiracy theory was indeed wrong, which leads us to today.
Anything that they said to each other, all of that is going to be used against this group of attorneys.
All three prosecutors in the group text are now facing complaints filed by the Attorney Regulation Council to the Colorado Supreme Court. Ethics attorney David Beller has spent years defending clients in front of the same board.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of prosecutors deciding what their conclusion is going to be and then going out and looking for evidence to support the conclusion.
A conspiracy theory derailed a murder case. Now prosecutors could lose their law license.
Does that sound familiar? They have their mind set that so they go and look for evidence that suits the theory. Had the judge's family followed. Scary stuff, right? That's right. Exactly. Coolies. So Kev's just joined us. To give anyone who's just like tuned in a background, we're just covering this DA who got disbarred, and we're going to compare what this DA did to get disbarred versus, you know, what DA Morrissey did, and why we think it would never go anywhere with DA Morrissey. So, but it did with Stanley. So.
This case is unprecedented in Colorado and really anywhere.
Charges against Barry Morphew were eventually dropped for reasons not directly related to the conspiracy theory. Former Judge Lama told me today that he was shocked to read the text messages plotting a secret investigation against him and his family. Remember, Kyle, that he was a sitting judge on this murder case at the time that this all happened.
And again, like, these prosecutors work in a rural area, but it includes some of the most high-profile names in Colorado law enforcement in the last 2 decades.
Exactly. So you have Linda Stanley, who's a elected district attorney, and then you have Mark Hurlbert, who used to be the district attorney up in the mountains. He prosecuted the Kobe Bryant case. These are not just small-town lawyers. These are elected officials with some serious, they've done this before.
We've seen the consequences more and more
Not
in recent
that
years of what happens
radio.
when people believe bonkers things they read on the internet. And the thirst that some people have to believe.
Look, you're bonkers. People are bonkers to listen to the news, even though we're sitting here listening to it. You be bonkers, mate. She was following and communicating with podcasters using their theories. Right. Indeed, she was. And we saw a little bit of that in Hanky Brennan's stuff, right? We would see like a rumor get circulated on X, then he would be like crossing someone with that rumor in the court. Right, a jab at their competitors, right? Right, crusty panties. Exactly. Crusty panties theories kept coming up in court, right? So anyway, so that's sort of the background. That sort of, we actually didn't know that Linda Stanley had opened this like investigation into the judge until all this came out. But you'll note that all these news segments keep saying that OARC is who initiated the complaints against her, but that's not who initiated the complaints against her. It was, in fact, Barry Morphew who initiated the complaints against her. And his lead attorney at the time, Iris Eaton, they arrested him prematurely. Yeah, look, I don't know. I'm not sure that we can hold it against everybody that were involved in the investigation. It's DA Stanley's problem, and I'll tell you why. The court's going to tell you why. I mean, I can tell you why I think it's not fair to hold it against everybody that did the investigation. She was supposed to be overseeing it. It was her. She's in the lead, technically she's the lead investigator. She's the overseer. She's the one who's supposed to control what's going on. So, but the court will give us like the deeper details on where she let the team down. So, but yes, one of the lead investigators didn't necessarily agree with her, and so that's why I'm saying, we can't necessarily hold it against the whole team, because some of them actually were thinking with the head screwed on. So he felt they could have waited till they had more evidence, like waiting for DNA results to come back and different things like that. So before I get into the legal document, I want to just scoot through a couple of lawyers discussing it. Now, I believe these are criminal defense attorneys in Colorado. So I wanted to listen to what Colorado lawyers say. But we did find that, lawyers who weren't necessarily from that area commenting on stuff going on in Massachusetts and how Massachusetts does things. Sometimes they had to look stuff up because they didn't know what the law was for that state and how different. Some of them were actually shocked because it was so different in that state. So, and then of course we had Judge Bev going, "That's not how we do it, Massachusetts, Mr. Jackson." which we will play that song that Kevy made at some stage today when I take a break. So keep that one racked up for me, Kevy. We'll switch to that when I take a break. But this is a couple of Colorado lawyers talking about, how it works with Colorado. So the one with that's not how it works in Massachusetts, Mr. Jackson. I forget the name of the song. Sorry, Kev. I never can even remember the names of my own songs. I just got to hit the play button for the first second to remember. Okay, so let's have a listen to what these lawyers say about the whole shebang. So they're going to give you just to know the background into the murder case. We don't need to go into that as much as they do. It's 10 minutes on that. But what happened in the Judge Lama investigation allegation, and then the ORC complaint on the second case. So that was a different lawyer again that kicked off the second complaint. And then, we'll probably end it there, but we don't need to go into too much detail here. But I just wanted to do, a quick run through what the lawyers think about the case, where it stands, why it stands, etc.
Problems in her prosecution of the Barry Morphew case.
Yes, you certainly did.
The big case, I mean, that was one that, at least the disappearance of Mr. Morphew's wife, Suzanne Morphew, happened even before Miss Stanley came into office. And then she gets elected, and that's really her flagship case. She's pretty personally involved in that one.
Yeah, she was pretty dedicated to the case, especially with regards to its coverage on YouTube. She seems
and not dedicated to the prosecution of the case, dedicated to the public dissemination of protected information about the case.
Yeah, she was certainly trying to get her side of the story out prior to it being in front of a jury without the protections, which is why this complaint originated.
Okay. So the Office of Attorney Regulation Counsel charges her with 7 different claims for violating the rules of professional conduct. Number 1 was this failure to act with reasonable diligence and promptness. What can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, she the trial court in that case set several deadlines in order for the prosecution to turn over discovery to defense, and she just kept missing those deadlines, which is not acting with promptness and diligence.
And it was what I thought was really interesting is, contrasting from the first case we talked about, this was stuff where the case was set for trial. They were getting within 35 days of trial. And there's just this continual failure by the prosecution to disclose expert CVs, which are, resumes. And I mean, pretty basic information that any expert should provide you early on in the case. The fact that that's coming out late, they're not sending out expert opinions or expert reports when they're re-interviewing them. All of this stuff seems to be sitting in some DA file for a long period of time.
Wow, does that sound familiar? What is this a common practice that they just sit on everything till the last minute? I mean, obviously they've gone over the date, and you've got to give Judge Lama credit, even though it was really hard for us who were waiting for the prosecution of Barry Morphew to happen. It was good that Judge Lama picked up these things and he pulled it up early and he sanctioned them for it. So, right, Amber, that's actually pretty normal, but in most cases, finding any of the public filings is generally always coming from the defense. Like with all the high-profile cases, it's generally always coming from the defense. Pretty common, but I mean, now we do actually have access to the court website. And Amber, I want to thank you for sending me the link for that. I can actually access this one, so that's good. I'm going to let this play for a little bit while I rearrange. I forgot to put my fans underneath my laptop and it's starting to cook. So I'm just going to let this play out while I organize a fan or two. So
before it's being disclosed.
Yeah, and I think they originally endorsed 16 expert witnesses in this case, and of those 16, 15 of them either were not allowed to testify at all or had some of their testimony limited based off of those failures to disclose that evidence.
I've never seen that happen in a murder case where you have so many and murder cases are, I mean, expert testimony is important in those cases. They're largely, especially when you don't have a body, which they didn't in this case.
Or a weapon.
Or weapon, yeah. I mean, that's pretty significant that you're going to need some experts to do an analysis and, make some inferences, which only they can do. The fact that at the end of the day they only left with one expert was pretty significant sanction. And I mean, I know judges are pretty reluctant to, suppress evidence in these big murder cases unless they absolutely have to.
The judge gave them multiple opportunities to comply.
Yeah.
It wasn't like one discovery deadline they failed to meet. It was multiple ones they continually failed to meet. It was a pattern.
Well, the rules around that even say that a court's supposed to impose, the least restrictive sanction when it comes to discovery. So I think that really means that the judge was just at the end of his rope in this case when it came to these different expert disclosures. So that's count one. All of those experts get suppressed, didn't act diligently and promptly to get those reports out. Count number two is when we get into these extrajudicial statements that Ms. Stanley's making, and the prohibition is against making those statements if they're likely to prejudice a proceeding if the lawyer is participating in the case. And so that's not a prosecution-specific one. That's a general lawyer-specific one. But if you're participating in a case, you're not supposed to be making these statements outside of court that are likely to unfairly prejudice the case.
And it's a reasonable.
Yeah, Morrissey, did you hear that? It does. No, this one does work, Amber. The last set of websites that before everything was dismissed against Barry, I couldn't get access to that one, but I can access this one. So something's changed. I don't know is it the same. It's the same state, isn't it? I don't know that it's changed states, but might be a different court. It might be a different court. Isn't it a different court? I know it's a different county that's going to be prosecuting. Actually, I don't know that. I still need to brush up on all of this. I thought it would be because where her body was found was a different county. But I know we got dragged back to I can't remember which county now. So I know she was found in Sashwa County, and I thought that's who would prosecute it. But I'm not sure. Maybe I should get Amber up here to talk with us. Do you want to come up and talk with us, Amber, and fill me in on some of this? Alamosa. Yeah, 12th District. Thank you. Should just get Amber up here and drill her brain because I haven't actually read the paperwork yet. Okay, so let's continue with. So you heard what he said about speaking publicly about the guilt or innocence of the suspect. So that's a no-no in every freaking state.
Rule. We don't want attorneys on either side influencing the jury before they're even seated.
So as far as this claim goes, a big one is that at the start, she's doing a press conference and makes a statement about Mr. Morphew exercising his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent.
Yeah, you as a prosecutor, you generally shouldn't be commenting on someone's right to remain silent in a press conference or even to a jury. Oftentimes, courts do not allow prosecutors to comment on someone's Fifth Amendment right.
Yeah, I've seen that, pretty standard blanket prohibition in every case, and it's typically grounds for mistrial for prosecutors.
I do believe this one will get televised. I don't know. I know that it's all on the table right now. They're asking about it. The media has submitted a number of requests, So it's all being discussed right now. So I also know Amber is in that area, I think. And Sue went to the last lot of trials, but it might be because it's a different county, it might be further for them to go now. So, yes, Sawash. Sorry, Bubbles. Aussie saying, words that have got lots of syllables and consonants in them. So maybe on a pool camera. So yeah, I think the last we heard was that some parts of the hearings weren't going to be televised, but I don't know about the main hearing. So clearly the pretrial stuff is not going to be, according to what the court published. Yeah, this was the case. She got a spy pen. Yes, Missy, that's the case. All right, so let's continue on.
Prosecutor gets up and says, hey, he exercised his fifth. That's, to a certain extent, that can be grandstanding, because you're kind of implying that because they chose to exercise the Fifth Amendment right, they had something to hide. Judges don't let you get into that. And so when she's talking to the media about that, she knows that information is going to get widely disseminated. I mean, she's talking to the media for a reason, so that's going to prejudice the proceedings.
Yeah, and it cuts against the defendant's right to be presumed innocent, which the judge should instruct the jury over and over again that they're presumed to be innocent.
That's another thing I saw that she left out of any of her comments that she did in all these different press tours. She never, at any point that I saw at least, came out and said, look, at this point he's presumed to be innocent. That presumption's going to stay with him.
Yeah, D.A. Morrissey, are you listening?
He's got his right today in court, that kind of stuff. I almost always see that whenever a district attorney is doing a press conference on a large case. They normally bookend their statements with starting off by saying, hey, at this point, this person presumed innocent, and they end it that way because, that protects your prosecution of the case. You don't want to overturn it on appeal because you made a bunch of adverse pretrial statements. So you think that's beneficial to both the defense and the prosecutor.
Yeah, nobody wants to try a case once if you don't have to, much less multiple times due to mistrials.
Notice the words that they're not using, like what was it? Fixing the jury, seating the jury, public statements that taint the jury. Notice how they're not saying any of that stuff. So, but there's a lot being made of that in the Karen Reid case that, specifically she was specifically seating the jury. Like even the law people are saying that, right? So, yeah, crazy shoot, right? Crazy. But there's a lot of words that they're not using here. They're just talking about, ethically, this is what you should or shouldn't do. You don't need to, like D.A. Morrissey did in the hostage video, stand there and say, this is a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. So things like that, because that's saying she's guilty and she hasn't even had her trial yet. But anyway, these are terms that these lawyers are not using. For some reason in Massachusetts, this is standard language, seeding the jury pool, etc. So disgusting.
And no attorney wants their name on an AORC complaint.
True. So the other one they mentioned is that she gets into the comment section of a YouTube video that she appeared on. Looks like she made multiple appearances on this. It's called Profiling Evil, like kind of a true crime YouTube video series. But starts to kind of defend her case against people who are saying that she's going to have trouble proving it because she doesn't have a body.
Yeah, she makes reference to other cases where people have been convicted without a murder weapon, without a body. I think she references 2 cases in particular, which is quite prejudicial to the defendant as well.
Yeah, I mean, recent cases in Colorado, so, kind of putting the defendant's case in the same camp as those other cases, same things, likely to result in some pretty adverse pretrial prejudice. Last one, somebody asked her at one point, "Hey, do you think Mr. Morphew's going to flee?" And she goes, "Possibly."
Yeah, I don't know if that's a wise decision on her behalf either.
It didn't seem like she had, I mean, other than the charges, which are serious, doesn't seem like she had any indication of that. But, to make that statement that he's likely to flee, again, that's you implying that, he has this consciousness of guilt, which is, what we see in actual case when people do flee, right? You can get an instruction that flight can be an indication of guilt. So her speculating that Mr. Morphew might flee, that's going to have an impact.
It certainly would on the jurors.
Yeah. Look, Linda Stanley, it's our job to do the speculating, all right? It's YouTube's job, not yours.
Then this gets into the additional rule of professional conduct, which is pretty similar to the first one, but it applies specifically to prosecutors, which states that prosecutors shouldn't be making statements on that are likely to lead to the public condemnation of the accused. And so the OARC board cites that as well in their complaint. Basically the same examples again. Complaint number 4 is that she failed to properly supervise her employees.
Yeah, I think she had several prosecutors working on the case. I think Jeff Lindsay was the one running the case in particular. He was making requests for additional help on the case, and she just was not responding, unfortunately.
And that's one thing that, I don't know if people always know that, but attorneys have certain obligations, but those obligations also extend to their employees and staff to abide by the rules of professional conduct as well. So if she is not putting into these procedures that discovery is managed appropriately, that they're complying with deadlines, I don't think there's an allegation that her staff made extrajudicial statements, but in a high profile.
Bubbles, that's funny that you should say that, because I'm pretty sure Canton was 20,000 people too. I think their population was 20,000 or 30,000. I can't remember the exact number, but it was pretty low. Yet they seated 2 juries twice. So, Painted Bunting, good on you. 2 years ago. With hypnosis, nah, I can do this without hypnosis. I can do this. I got the willpower in my brain. I kind of feel like if you're susceptible to hypnosis, you don't have the willpower in your brain. I'm not saying that against you either, Painted Bunting. I'm just saying that about me. Like I'm too strong-willed to get hypnotized. But I've got the will. I can do this. I know I can. You're starting to think there could have been strategy. I've been telling you all along it was strategy. Right, they're used to cameras, and he's a freaking movie producer. Like, he knew what he was doing. It absolutely was strategy. See, in the last, and it was all based on the last jury going, well, she was drinking. So, give it to him. She was drinking. Sorry, I'm switching around because the chat is, so I think some people are a little bit behind in the stream, but that's all right. I can switch back and forth as long as I'm not confusing everyone else, because I'm switching back and forth. Amber, I sent you a reply on Discord at another time. Okay, you got my message. All right. But I would like someone to come up and from the area to come up and, talk with us about the case. I have a lot of brushing up to do. It's been, I think, 2 years. It was 4 years ago when we started covering this case, and I think it's been like 2.5 years since my brain has even looked at a document. So we've been so deep into the Karen Reed case and a couple of other cases going on, Koberger and so on, diving deep into, the data and stuff like that. So I have a lot to catch up on. I've got to go refresh my brain on all the dates and where we were at. This case has a lot of data. the reason I like this case, it's got vehicle telematics. We're going to see a big difference between what the prosecution presented as vehicle and telephone telematics, and vehicle telematics and phone data from Celebrite. We're going to see a big difference between what they presented in the Karen Reid trial and this case. So it's going to be based on the same kind of concepts, where the vehicle puts him, what he was up to. We've got some CCTV that backs up some of the stuff, the things that he was up to, where his phone was pinging when he was up to that sort of stuff. So it's very similar in how they're proving the case, similar data, which is why I love this case and want to get into it. It's all data. We can stick with our data, don't lie, people do. It fits Barry Morphew perfectly. So, yes, yeah, the new arrest affidavit is very good. It's very good. And there's so much. And I actually assume that this whole debacle with Linda Stanley is something that his new defense, because he's not with Iris Eaton anymore. She sold her business, or I can't remember what happened, but he's got a new lawyer now. But I fully expect them to use what Linda Stanley did against this prosecution. However, this is a different county. This is a different bunch of prosecutors. They're probably going to be using the same basics. They've got his vehicle data. And as you all know from watching the Karen Reid trial, the vehicle data doesn't change. It's a snapshot in time. It's not supposed to change between court hearings. So that, yeah, this is going to be a massive deep dive in learning how the data should have looked in the Karen Reid case. This is a brilliant reflection on what the prosecution did have but didn't provide in the Karen Reid case. How the evidence and chain of custody is being followed in this case, because obviously Linda Stanley let the team down and didn't have any of that in place, whereas this new team does. So yeah, it's going to be a great, lots of business and stoplights. Okay, I think he was there for work, right? And there's cameras everywhere, right? That's right, Bubbles. So yeah, it goes on and on. Anyway, let's just catch up with the last bit of what the lawyers have got to say about it, and then we'll start diving into some of the details.
Okay, so they're supposed to be doing these things to make sure that everyone, all the way down to a legal assistant, is complying with the rules of professional procedure.
Yeah, and this, as you were saying earlier, this is a high-profile case. It's a serious case. Her prosecutor, Mr. Lindsay, was asking for help, and she didn't even make a request for additional funds for this case at all.
We get into claim 5, which I thought was the most harrowing one of this complaint, which, you know, it's somewhat of a mundane rule, but it's interesting how it's applied here. So it precludes a lawyer from encouraging others to violate the rules of professional conduct. Makes sense. You can't violate the rules of professional conduct. Your staff can't violate the rules of professional conduct. You shouldn't be encouraging your staff to violate the rules of professional conduct. But this really gets intense when she basically goes after the judge overseeing the case.
Yeah, she did go after the judge quite handily. She had some bad rulings, or the district attorney's office had some bad rulings. So she decided to investigate the judicial officer. I think it was his last name was Lamas. He's currently an attorney now in Pueblo. He runs a practice as well. So they tried to investigate him for domestic violence claims. First, she tells the sheriff to investigate, and the sheriff declines to investigate. So then she tasked her investigator to do it themselves from the office, the district attorney's office. So he goes and does that.
I thought that was really interesting too. So, you know, law enforcement has to have some basis to start an investigation, right? They can't do so on a whim or a hunch or something like that, right? They need at least reasonable suspicion. And in this case, when she goes to the chief of police, says, "Hey, I'd like you to interview this judge's ex-wife to see if there was domestic violence in the relationship." The chief of police tells her they can't do that. He says, "I don't have a basis for that." So she's already put on notice that there's no basis for it. She should know, but she's put on notice that there's no basis for that. So then she tasks her investigator in the DA's office, her employee, to go out and interview the judge's ex-wife to try and, I guess, hang him up on some kind of domestic violence allegation so he then has to recuse from the case because she was upset that all of her experts got suppressed. And the interesting part is they included in the OARC complaint the interview with the judge's ex-wife, which is that, nothing happened. There was no domestic violence in the relationship at all. So that was about as extreme as I've seen a DA go into, investigating a judicial officer. That
Have you even seen the Karen Reed case? Not that the DA investigated any judges, but he went pretty deep.
That I don't think I've ever seen that happen outside of them getting charged with a DUI or something like that. But for the DA to institute that without any basis was particularly intense. So they get in this additional claim based on her trying to get her employee to violate the rules of professional conduct. And then she does this not only in the Morphew case, but also the last two claims are about her making extrajudicial statements in a child abuse case.
Yeah, so the Morphew case ultimately got dismissed because they couldn't prove their case because they lost all their experts. They didn't have a body. They didn't have a weapon. Mm-hmm. So she unfortunately had to dismiss that case. But then she gets another case, another high-profile case with child abuse allegations involved in it. And she goes on to make comments to the media again, not learning her lesson from the Morphew case.
I thought that was an interesting point there too. So, she's going on this YouTube channel. She's going off on people who are commenting about how the lack of a body is going to affect her case. And she's saying how provable it is because these other people got convicted. But then right before trial, the DA's office dismisses their own case by saying, "Hey, we don't have a body. We think we might be able to find one. We got to wait until the ground thaws in the spring." So they dismissed their case.
And I might just add there, they literally didn't find Suzanne where they were looking for her. They actually were looking for another missing lady, I think around the same age group, maybe a little older. They were looking for another missing lady when they found her in a different county. So one of the things that the probable cause affidavit, the current probable cause affidavit says is that there's no evidence that her body decomposed there. So he moved her. And then we had people that were following along with us, or that we were also following along with. We had people involved in the Hope Rocks Foundation. For those who don't know of that, that's one of the a bunch of locals who are following the case. One of their guys was out, boots on the ground, looking for her body. He said multiple times she moved it. Barry moved her body. So we kind of knew that, but we were guessing. Wasn't really proven until I actually did find her body and saw that it hadn't actually decomposed there. So what else did he just say there? I forgot what he just said there. We'll just continue on because my brain went blank. I think I need a fucking bush lettuce.
Without prejudice, with obviously the intent to come back later on and refile it, which it's possible to do. But if they do that, and I think they found Suzanne Morphew's body recently, so they might come back and try and refile the case. But they're going to run into some issues with a Rule 7 requirement that they have to prove that additional evidence now exists, which didn't originally, and they'll have the new body. But I think some of those sanctions are probably going to stay in place. Those rules are designed to keep a prosecutor from continually rearresting somebody and getting multiple bites at the apple and prosecuting them.
Okay, so this is something I had reached out to a number of lawyers to ask them if this is the case that's happened, like is it in between before they found Suzanne's body, or maybe it was just as they found Suzanne's body. Anyway, I reached out to a number of lawyers to ask them to give me some answers to this. You know, is some of this stuff going to still stand? How's it going to affect the new trial? You know, what might be in place, what might get dumped because of Linda Stanley's actions. I reached out to a number of lawyers and no one wanted to talk to me about it. So it's really good to hear this from these lawyers, how it's going to affect a new trial. So one of the things I thought would be a positive is that, you know, it wouldn't be the same county prosecuting because the body was found in a different county. So that I felt was a positive. Anne Kelly says, no, this is a brand new case. Well, we'll see. These lawyers, if they're saying there's some hand that could be played to keep some evidence out because it was previously ruled on, maybe that's what they're saying, is that a defense lawyer, because these are defense lawyers, keep in mind, maybe there's some that they're hinting at what hand could be played in the future regarding what's happened with DA Stanley and that the sanctions that were applied to that part of the case. So
certainly if the purpose for her dismissing the case was because, you know, her experts got suppressed, she's not going to get to come back later on and bring those experts back. So I guess that'll be interesting to see what happens if he gets recharged and they try and bring back those old experts. I mean, I think the defense is going to have a lot of motions to file.
May even have
I don't specifically understand why they would bring back the old experts. I wouldn't personally, if I was prosecuting the case, and I am not a prosecutor by a long shot, I'm not even a lawyer. Let me just add that disclaimer. I wouldn't be bringing back the old experts. If those experts had some sort of sanctions, was this before they found Suzanne's remains? This interview, are you talking about this interview? Because I'm pretty sure they just mentioned that they found her remains. Hang on, let me just check the date. 2023. Oh my God, it was before they found her remains. This is December 2023. They found her in 2024, didn't they? I forget the dates, but Amber's got the dates in her head. She's obviously been looking this up, refreshing the memory a lot sooner than I had been. But when interesting. No, they banned vapes as well. They banned everything in Australia, but we're getting there. We're smoking lettuce at the moment, bush lettuce. I think it's called wild lettuce or something.
a venue objection as well.
So after all of this happens with the Morphew case, we've got additional claims against Miss Stanley in her prosecution of a child abuse case where she's doing a lot of the same stuff, similar claims about extrajudicial statements and special obligations of a prosecutor, getting to the point where she's talking about the defendant's prior juvenile history. She's speculating about a motive, talking about prior uncharged conduct. I mean, all kind of stuff that you'd at least need to file a motion for before you could get into it in an actual trial, and certainly not stuff that was public before she made those statements.
Yeah,
And here's the point. I think it was a pattern of conduct that caused this to go as far as it did. I don't necessarily know that, you know, Barry Morphew's team bitching about her was the straw that broke the camel's back, although I'm pretty sure the investigation into the judge raised some eyebrows, but it was the ongoing misconduct in other cases. Why does that sound familiar? Because DA Morrissey and all the other cases, Sandra Birchmore, etc. So, all right, we're done with these guys. Amber, I'm just going to check these dates because I literally haven't checked anything for a little bit. I probably should have been more prepared for this. Had a busy morning. Suzanne Moore. This is why you should be up here to argue with me. Found. Where are we? 2024 was the autopsy. Her remains were found in Moffat, Colorado, in Sawash County, 90 minutes south of where she lived in Chaffee County. September 2023, her remains were found. So December. So her remains had been found when they did this interview. So it's always good as lawyers to brush up on the case. It's okay for me as a YouTuber to get shit wrong. But you're a lawyer. So oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Kevy. That's why you're the super mod. Here's a condensed timeline. May 10th, well, we think May 9th, that she was actually killed. But May 10th, 2020, Suzanne Morphew is reported missing, and her bike is found near the home in Maysville, Colorado. Now, I'm going to show you an interview with the person who actually was the first person to speak with Barry Morphew when they found the bike. So this is like within a couple of days of them finding the bike. It's either the same day or the following days. So they embark on a massive search effort, which Mike King, who they've talked about here, was involved with. You can see in my list here, actually. See here? You can actually see the videos where he spoke with Linda Stanley and some of the shit that got held against her in those conversations. But he was part of that search effort. He teamed up with the brother. The brother was sus on Barry to start with. The whole family was sus on Barry to start with. They knew he'd been abusive. The bestie knew he'd been abusive. She'd sent texts to the bestie. That's probably the basis of the basis of my playlist on the Morphew case. I was getting to this point where everything was about Barry. Barry was getting, pretty good representation by his lawyers, and they were putting out a lot of stuff, Barry this, Barry that, blah blah blah. And I got tired of just everything being about Barry, so I wanted to do This Is Who Suzanne Is. So that's what my current information is about, and also how his lawyers were twisting things. Like, it didn't matter what Barry said, they had a twist on it. And that's what I was sort of diving into, like the twists and turns that the lawyers were using, even though Barry had already incriminated himself with his own words. So moving on, May 5th, 2021, Barry Morphew's arrested and charged with murder and other crimes, including voting for Suzanne in the election because he liked Trump. And then April 19th, 2022, all charges were dropped without prejudice. The prosecution cites the need for more evidence and body recovery. And so just the fact that they dropped it and saying they didn't have enough evidence at that point was the reason given to the court. So that also supports the lead investigator saying he didn't feel I had enough evidence to go forward yet. So it was more, I think that the reason she moved so quickly is because of Barry's own statements. That's what buried him. Barry buried himself, essentially. But anyway, So in September 22nd, 2023, Suzanne's remains were found in Sawash County. And then 24 to 25, no new charges filed yet, investigation ongoing. And then we have his arrest just recently. So, so that's the rundown. That's the timeline of the case. So, but the point of this part of the podcast, I would just like to go into, what things specifically did Stanley do that raised the ire of the SJC? Why did the SJC decide to act? We know that, as I started out saying, that Massachusetts is traditionally a blue state. So obviously that is not the state that's going to say, well, this blue DA did all this stuff wrong, so we're going to hold him accountable. But I do believe that Colorado, at that time that this was all unfolding, that part of Colorado, these outer sort of areas outside of the cities, were essentially red. And yet she still got held accountable. That could be because it was held in the city and those are blue, but I feel like there was more balance in the state than what you'd have in Massachusetts. We already heard Karen Reid's petition for habeas relief, and all the way up to SCOTUS. They just backed the judge all the way, and DA. So we were never going to get any of that happening there. But the thing that kicked this off in Colorado was the defendant. He's the one that made the initial complaints. Then they were able to, get DA Stanley's communications and things like that. So on the last podcast that we did, we talked about how the Massachusetts Law Weekly Society, whatever they are, forum, they were like, oh my God, are we allowed to subpoena the prosecutor's records, or the lead investigator's records? Or here we've got the DA's communications were subpoenaed and used as evidence against her. So, we know that this happened. We know that Morrissey was doing a lot worse. He was actually talking with other judges, saying this is how you should rule, and made one judge actually undo a ruling and re-rule. So we know that's happened in Massachusetts. But I think it's largely political, that we don't see any action. Massachusetts got its own process that that could be followed. But if you've got no faith in the SJC actually upholding anything, in this case, the OARC did, and then the governing body for ethics stepped in. Everybody did what did play their roles properly, and she was held accountable. So let me just squeezy all the way up to the top of my notes here. Okay, so who bought the lawsuit and which court was it in? So we know it was Barry's lawyers that started it. We know the Office of Attorney Regulation Council, on behalf of the people of the state of Colorado, who they all represent, including the judge. The case was adjudicated in the Office of the Presiding Disciplinary Judge, which operates under the authority of the Supreme Court of Colorado. So it falls under civil jurisdiction, but it specifically addresses attorney disciplinary matters. And even though you're a DA, you're still an attorney. So Linda Stanley, who was serving as the district attorney for Colorado's 11th district, judicial district, face allegations of professional misconduct relating to a handling of a couple of cases The disciplinary action focused on violations of the Colorado Rules of Professional Conduct. We heard Auntie Bev mention the professional codes of conduct a number of times in pretrial hearings and different things that she spoke about. She likes to lean on those, but she doesn't actually follow them because she did a lot of things that were outside of that professional codes of conduct. And we covered a lot of those over a period of time. If you've watched all of my stuff, all of my uploaded videos, I covered a lot of this. Not just her, but the DA and upwards from there. We talked about, a lot of misconduct that went all the way up to even the, not the Attorney General at the time, but not the Attorney General at the time the charges were laid against Karen Reid, but the one that took over afterwards. So in the People versus Stanley. All right, so let's get to the document. We've been here long enough going over that stuff. I will show you the first interview of Barry Morphew that kind of set everybody into motion as to what the hell. I also found a case from the 2008-10 period where he might have got some of his ideas from. Just because I watch for downtime, I actually do watch solved cases for fun on ID discovery and things like that. So let's get into this document. I've lost my document. I haven't even really picked what parts of this document I'm going to read to you. It's a pretty big document. It's pretty big. It's 85 pages. So we'll just start at the start. So this is an amended opinion because apparently they got one date wrong and they had to, under the rules of whatever, they decided to amend the opinion so that they got the right date. But anyway, following the highly publicized disappearance of a Chaffey County wife and mother, the newly elected DA, Linda Stanley, brought first-degree murder charges against Barry. During the prosecution, the respondent made 3 improper extrajudicial statements about the case to the media, which threatened to prejudice the defendant and undermine the public's interest in justice. Those statements contributed in part to a judicial ruling changing venue in the case. So that was not a lot about what she actually said, but generating the public interest the way she did is what caused the defense to ask for a change of venue. At the same time, respondent did not adequately supervise the prosecution of the case. She failed, and this is really important, she failed to timely direct adequate administrative resources to process discovery. Is that what DA Morrissey might have done? Leading to a series of judicially imposed sanctions against the prosecution for discovery violations. Is that what Auntie Bev didn't do because she's biased? Whereas, maybe Judge Lama wasn't. She failed to take reasonable measures to establish a leadership structure that ensured accountability within the prosecution team. Is that what DA Morrissey done? Where was his leadership structure that ensured accountability? With the result that important projects in the case fell through the cracks. And she failed to intervene when the prosecution team was given the opportunity to cure its deficient endorsements for expert witnesses, the majority of whom were eventually excluded. So that's why she went after Judge Lama. That all those things that she failed to do, the judge pulled her up, he sanctioned her, and that case would have been fine with those sanctions in place. But then she went on to do more destruction. After the presiding judge issued several adverse rulings less than 2 months before jury selection, Stanley instructed her chief investigator to interview the judge's former spouse to determine whether the judge committed domestic abuse, even though she had no credible evidence to believe that the judge had ever engaged in such criminal conduct. Stanley ordered the investigation in an effort to uncover information about the judge that would require him to recuse himself from the case. Shortly after the interview, which revealed that the judge had never abused his former spouse, Stanley dismissed the case without prejudice. What a friggin' shit show. In a bid to rehabilitate her relationship with the media, Stanley later agreed to sit for a videotaped interview with a local reporter. During that interview, which respondent reasonably should have known was on the record and would be publicly disseminated, she again made improper extrajudicial statements about 2 defendants criminally charged in the death of a 10-month-old baby. She effectively pronounced that one of the defendants was guilty. Big no-no, apparently. D.A. Morrissey revealed inadmissible details about the defendant's sexually based juvenile offences and impugned the motives and character of the defendants. D.A. Morrissey, are you listening? 2 judicial officers, ruling independently, concluded that Stanley's extrajudicial statements amounted to outrageous government. My tongue's getting tired. Outrageous government conduct, so severely prejudicing the defendants that the judiciary was required to dismiss each defendant's criminal case. Taken in totality, a majority of the hearing board concludes that these ethical violations warrant respondents' disbarment. So we go through the procedural history. The claims, where are we? About the sanctions, on the grounds that it fails to state a claim, violates the separation of powers doctrine, and is void for vagueness. This was her argument. She argued that the PDJ ought to require mens rea of intent to claim 5 or to impose no sanction. So that was her arguing in her defense. She put in 2 motions and an omnibus order. We could go through those if we really wanted to, but they were long and they were just ridiculous and essentially got rejected. So the Morphew case, findings of fact in that case. This is just her history. Blah, blah, blah. She graduated from law school in 2010. Respondent was admitted to practice in Colorado. She worked as a prosecutor for most of her legal career in municipal, county, and district courts. In 2017, she briefly worked in a private practice before accepting employment as a hearing officer for the Colorado Department of Revenue. She left that position in January 2020, to campaign for the position of district attorney. Footnotes are uninteresting. She testified that she ran in part on a platform of prioritizing cold cases. She won the election and was sworn in on 11th of January 2021. Since 21, she served as the elected district attorney for the 11th Judicial District. Hang on. I misskipped this bit because this is probably important because this is part of what was her misconduct, I guess. Respondent recounted that on assuming the role of district attorney, she discovered that the office was buried in a backlog of cases, hampered by several prosecutorial vacancies and cash-strapped, as the county commissioners refused to allocate adequate funds. She also mentioned, however, that her office held a funding balance of $500,000, which served as a cushion to balance overspending in the budget to cover expenses associated with prosecuting particularly large cases. So there was some misuse of money, apparently, that comes up a little later. Her name appears on every filing her deputies submitted to courts. She's responsible for overseeing all administrative aspects to the office, which DA Morrissey is as well. Soon after respondent won the election, she hired a lawyer to fill the position of senior deputy district attorney. She's a career prosecutor. Around the time the respondent won the election, she began corresponding with Mike King, the host of the YouTube channel Profiling Evil. For those of you who didn't see my video, I did do a reaction critique of Mike King. He didn't really cover the Karen Reid case, but he did make some comments that I found outrageous, and I did do a responding video. I do respect the guy for his role in solving cold cases. There was just some things that I just couldn't get on board with him saying that went against what our current system is about. So I just felt that, I didn't feel that she said a lot on the Mike King podcast that alluded to Barry's guilt. I didn't feel like he did either. But anyway, the lawyer for Barry, Iris Eaton put forward that it was all so bad, but I didn't feel it was it wasn't as direct as DA Morrissey's hostage video. Let's put it that way, because that's what I was measuring it against. King testified that he reached out to respondent, hailing her election. She responded, thanking him for his support and sharing her vision for the office. Both testified that they built a friendly relationship over text and email, discussing law enforcement topics, but also personal matters like the sorrows of parents, aging, and death. Soon after she took office, she was twice featured on King's show. After respondent's appearance on King's show, King texted respondent, thanking her for the trust she placed in him. Okay, this is on to the investigation and his arrest, which we kind of just already outlined. DA Stanley testified that within a few weeks of taking office, she discussed the Morphew investigation with John Spezzi, the elected sheriff. She then assigned Lindsay to the Morphew investigation by virtue of his assignment as the felony prosecutor in Chaffey County. According to Stanley, she did not have the requisite experience to try the case herself. Instead, she took on county court docket duties in Fremont County. In March 2021, Lindsay started talking to Commander Alex Walker, chief investigator for the 11th Judicial District Attorney's Office. Lindsay quickly realized the investigation was enormous. According to Stanley, Spezzi invited her and Lindsay to Salida, I don't know how you guys say that there, in the spring of 2021 for a 2-day presentation about the Morphew investigation. She and Lindsay attended and asked questions. Then around the end of 2021, Walker sent Lindsay a 129-page arrest affidavit for Barry Morphew, Suzanne Morphew's husband. Respondent testified that she and Lindsay were actively involved in discussions with Walker about the affidavit's iterative drafts. Well, she's supposed to do that, isn't she? On May 5th, 2021, I could be wrong about that. I'm not a lawyer. Let me just say, yes, this is real, Jess. This is real. Her impounding the dog bit records, so DA could suborn perjury. Yes, there's a lot of this, right? There's a lot of things that we can draw on for experience in the other case to what happened in this case. So When I'm on this other screen reading, because it's much bigger, I can't see the chat. So if you are chatting, I'll just pop over here occasionally and read a few of the chats. So after Barry Morphew's arrest, respondent attended press conferences alongside Sheriff Spezzi in a press conference. In the afternoon of May 5th, respondent testified that she was exhausted, did not want to be at the press conference, and did not want to answer questions. Spezzi, however, told her that her presence was required. Like, duh. Respondent called being briefed beforehand for 2 hours by a public relations officer about responding to press questions. At the conference, Spezzi deflected several questions and directed them to Stanley. According to Stanley, she knew she had to choose her words carefully and to stress that Barry Morphew was presumed innocent. At one point, a journalist asked whether Barry Morphew was cooperating with the investigation and whether he was questioned about the location of his wife's body. When Sheriff Spezzi gestured for Stanley to respond, she answered, Barry was taken into custody, and when asked questions, he said he wanted a lawyer, and all questioning ended. That was in part true, but he had been questioned before he was taken into custody multiple times, and he didn't lawyer up then. So that was kind of misleading. Morphew first appeared in court May 6, 2021 to hear the charges against him. The arrest warrant remained suppressed following that appearance. Thereafter, Lindsay took the role of lead counsel for the Morphew case. Stanley assigned Deputy District Attorney Aaron Pembleton to the Morphew case to assist Lindsay. Stanley spoke with Lindsay on a weekly basis about the case's status. So that's her excuse for not supervising as adequately as the Supreme Court felt she should have. On May 18th, Lindsay filed a complaint and information outlining the charges against Barry Morphew, which included first-degree murder, a Class 1 felony, tampering with a deceased human body, a Class 3 felony, tampering with physical evidence, a Class 6 felony, possession of a dangerous weapon, a Class 5 felony, and attempting to influence a public servant, also a felony. Yeah, he tried to bribe somebody. I forget what that was about. We can get into that. Who did he try to bribe, Amber? I forget. Mike is pro-law enforcement establishment, and it shows. That's what bugs me about many retired officers. They always back to LE can do no wrong. I agree entirely. Alan Jackson's pregnant pause. Are we going to shorten our names so I can say them at some stage? We really need to have shorter names on YouTube. So this is in regards to the Barry Morphew Day, not Morrissey. No, we are reflecting on how Morrissey is getting away with shit that he shouldn't be getting away with. That's what we're doing today. We are reflecting on that case. Massachusetts has a similar accountability structure. It's just got different rules and different ways to go about it, but still a similar accountability structure. And Karen Reid could bring one of these cases against the DA. But anyway, let's continue on. So there were discovery difficulties. You don't say. During the Morphew investigation, the Sheriff's Office acted as a central clearinghouse for information collected by all the law enforcement agencies. They had thousands of tips, tens of thousands of tips. So yes, they did have to clear a lot of that. After Barry Morphew's arrest, the Sheriff's Office dumped a 10 terabyte external hard drive of discovery, including scores of videos and other digital-based discovery, on the District Attorney's Office. Oh, it's the Sheriff's fault? Is that not the District Attorney's Office's role? Crystal Kime, an administrative assistant with the 11th District Attorney Office, JDAO, let's just go with that because I'm tired of trying to say that, testified that the discovery production, the most massive she'd ever seen, was not usefully organized, merely slotted into digital folders labeled according to the agency that generated the material. Keim explained that it was extremely irregular for the sheriff's office to send discovery on an external hard drive. Usually, she said, the sheriff's office organizes discovery, labels it, and uploads it to Action, a proprietary in-house statewide case management system for Colorado prosecutors. Stanley agreed, calling the production an anomaly and faulting the sheriff's office for failing to mention the size of the discovery cache. So if it was terabytes, 10 terabytes, then obviously uploading it somewhere was it wasn't going to work. Had she known, she said, she could have delayed in filing charges or put resources in place beforehand to process the materials. When did this happen? During the investigation. The discovery production, so after he was arrested, obviously. So I would call this a hole in the process. You can't upload 10 terabytes. I mean, that's going to take you a week of just sitting there uploading the shit. Okay, you have limitations on uploads. Even the speed of the internet these days, you still have limitations on that transfer. The speed of transfer. So 10 terabytes would have been actually more sensible to hand over on an external hard drive. So Linda Stanley seems to be a little dinosaur who doesn't understand these limitations. So thank you after the TV interview. Thank you. It's all right. You don't have to, but it's a mouthful for all of us to say. Well, I see you around on a lot of channels. It's a lot of words. I can't even say the 11th Judicial District without getting my tongue tied. Anyway, the prosecution team, including respondent Stanley, was aware under criminal I forget what the P stands for, 16. Initial discovery was due within 21 days. In addition, Barry Morphew's counsel filed a discovery demand on May 17th, 2021 to timely get the material to the defense. Lindsay instructed Keim to copy the information onto an external hard drive, bypassing the usual process of Bates labeling the material before producing it to the defense. Lindsay then directed Aaron Ordway, an investigator for the office, to drive to Denver to hand deliver the hard drive. Oh my God, there's so many wrongs with this. So many things wrong with this. Like I said, dinosaurs who don't actually understand how this shit works. But you do have to bait stamp everything. Daily, law enforcement agencies sent new batches of discovery to the sheriff's office, which in turn forwarded the material to the district attorney's office. Keim worked long hours uploading the material to Action so that the district attorney's office could Bates label it. Poor girl, she should have had some help. Keim then tried to run the new information through eDiscovery, Colorado prosecutors' electronic discovery portal that integrates with Action and uploads information into a standard format that defense counsel can access. But eDiscovery got bogged down due to bandwidth issues. It's 10 fucking terabytes. I'm not surprised, Keim said, which prevented her from efficiently uploading the material. We had technical issues, your lordship. No worries. Thank you for popping in and helping us out. Kevy's on the road shortly, so say goodbye to Kevy. Thanks for helping out, Kevin. So yeah, obviously they had some technical issues. This often happens in small areas that don't have the financial resources to update technology to suit the change in, like 10 terabytes of discovery is probably, back in the old days, was like, a room full of paperwork that they would have to cart around. And so they've only marginally moved to carting around hard drives rather than the paperwork. They would actually move to this, like, these newer processes where we like zip shit and deal with things in bulk, basically bulk processing of information. So weird, but it happens in these smaller townships. Happens here in Australia too. I heard somewhere along the line that here in Australia, some of our older police departments out in the country still use fax machines. Like, what the hell? So there's that. Can you imagine faxing 10 terabytes? Oh my God. Right. Judge Murphy, who was presiding over the Morphew case, held a hearing to address discovery issues on May 27th. Lindsay and Pembleton attended in person and respondents appeared virtually. On June 3rd, 2021, Judge Murphy issued an order ruling on the defence's request to compel discovery, ordering that any electronic communications created or received by law enforcement officers related to this case must be disclosed to the defense if they are material to the prosecution of the case, or if they contain any evidence that would be in any way favorable to the defense. I just have to wet my mouth. Also on June 3rd, Judge Murphy issued and Stanley received an order regarding the defense team's motion to limit pretrial publicity. Without suggesting that there were any violations of general ethical principles, Judge Murphy set forth guidance in all forms of extrajudicial statements about the Morphew case by reciting and incorporating as an order Colorado RPC 3.6 and Colorado RPC 3.8, as well as relevant comments. The prosecution struggled to effectively manage discovery requirements. I'm not surprised. The defense filed a motion for discovery sanctions on June 24th. It requested a contempt citation relating to discovery issues issued on July 6th. And it filed another motion for sanctions on July 8th. On July 22nd, Judge Murphy ruled that the prosecution had committed a discovery violation by failing to timely provide cell phone data and other electronic devices to the defense. Judge Murphy did not conclude that the prosecution's failures were willful and declined to enter sanctions. So she got plenty of chances. Stanley was aware of Judge Murphy's ruling. She also was aware, both of these judges, Lama and Murphy, are like doing their fucking jobs, right? Both of them. They're both doing their jobs. They're not really favoring the defense or the prosecution. They're just saying, do your fucking jobs, people. She was also aware that if court finds a pattern of discovery violations, the presiding judge has wide discretion to impose sanctions, which can involve excluding evidence or witnesses, reducing or dismissing charges, or dismissing a case. I'm just going to let that sit for a second. We all knew that, right? Not that Judge Bev knew any of that shit. Anyway, just moving my laptop over the fan a little bit more, so it might be a little louder, but I apologize in advance. Where are we? Respondent insisted that part of Judge Murphy's ruling hinged on the prosecution's failure to provide a mirror image of a cell phone, which the prosecution had not regularly provided in criminal cases before that point. Oh, so the prosecution wasn't accustomed to mirror imaging. It seems like it's going to be a problem all over America. It doesn't seem like this might be a problem that's completely isolated in Canton. And a recording pulled from a spy pen that Suzanne Morphew allegedly surreptitiously placed in her home, which the prosecution provided, but the defense alleged was inaudible. Why is it their fault it's inaudible? According to the respondent, these discovery violations occurred only because the prosecution had to go to the back of the line in asking CBI technicians to process these defense requests, leading to a lag in prosecution that overstepped the discovery deadline. Well, really, discovery deadlines. Like, that doesn't happen in every case. During this time, respondent continued to communicate with King. She testified that their private correspondence was not meant to be published, and King said he honored that understanding and never published their exchanges. On May 15th, King requested information about a short rifle some speculated that Barry Morphew used to murder Suzanne Morphew. Some speculated, including him. Responded. Stanley responded to King by text, I'll see what I can do, only because it's you, Mike. Via text, King also asked Stanley whether Morphew strangled Suzanne Morphew in the hot tub. Respondent replied, we know it wasn't bloody. The hot tub was drained with crust around the drain areas, indicating it has not been used in a long time, but keep on spinning ideas in your brain. And King messaged about Suzanne Morphew's car keys. Stanley replied, we think she always left her purse in the car. Later in June 2021, respondent texted King, sending him an article titled News Organizations Ask Judge to Consider His Decision to Seal Barry Morphew's Arrest Affidavit. King replied that he would create something tonight and put it out in the morning. King also expressed enthusiasm that Judge Murphy was being challenged and that Stanley was not opposed to publicly releasing the affidavit. Later that summer, King texted, I have a new video coming on Barry and I laud you. You good? Stanley replied, I'm great, thanks. We got him, no worries. Didn't know all that happened. According to Lindsay, he felt taxed and overwhelmed by summer of 2021. He was handling a full-time felony docket in Chaffee County and was litigating the Morphew case, one of the biggest, most ungainly cases he had ever prosecuted. He testified that he viewed the resources available to him as pretty paltry and frequently asked Stanley for help, including for at least one full-time lawyer on the Morphew case. Stanley was not very responsive to his emails. Oh, she was very responsive to Mike King, wasn't she? He recounted, nor was she easy to find in person. Somehow Mike King could find her. He reported that she did not help with discovery or motions, though he expected that as the elected district attorney, she would be involved in every aspect of this high-profile case. Stanley disagreed with Lindsay's characterization. She described her role as a consulting, advising, and staying abreast of the developments, and testified that until late summer 2021, Lindsay never mentioned that he needed additional assistance, nor did she recall Lindsay requesting a full-time lawyer on the Morphew case. Like, it's just totally contradictory. He had Kime complaining about a 10 terabyte discovery drop, and you don't think that your single lawyer is going to need some help with that? Like, crikey, lady, pull your head in. I think they could take the top 20 LE agencies for the county, state, big cities, and rural towns and train the worst and implement successful policies and procedure. It's not like it's getting better. No, exactly. I agree. I think they could do a little more on this training side of things. Eaton has made it her new mission to expose prosecutorial misconduct. Yeah, I don't know that she's a good person to do that. She seems to have like a bee in a bonnet. Like if you're going to take on something like that, you need to have less bias. Hey, you need to be more balanced, let's say, if you're going to take it on. I mean, of course, if you're defending a client, then no, you don't need to have that balance. But I didn't know that I like the fact that Eaton is doing that. What do you think, Amber? Is it good or bad? You're, more local to it all than I am. So, expanding the prosecution team. According to Lindsay, he felt taxed. Oh, yep, sorry, read that bit. Nevertheless, beginning the middle of 2021, Stanley began regularly asking Tom Raines, executive director of the Colorado District Attorney's Council, for support. CDAC, a statewide organization representing all 22 Colorado District Attorney's offices, provides prosecution-related services. As part of that mission, Raines often taps his network in more resource-rich judicial districts for volunteers to assist with cases in rural jurisdictions. Statewide, this was a very challenging period to recruit and retain prosecutors. However, Raines was unable to find any elected district attorneys that could spare lawyers for secondment to the 11th judicial district. Interesting, the power of the state is not so powerful on this occasion. Watchdog groups, right, that's what I would say exactly. Trump's blind trust in law enforcement brothers. Qualified immunity sure has a wide girth. It's disturbing, a big reason accountability doesn't exist. I'm going to agree with you, not necessarily on the Trump side of it because I don't give a fuck, but certainly qualified immunity is playing a role here. I agree entirely. Whichever side of politics supports this qualified immunity thing, I think they both do, to be honest. I don't think it's one side or the other. I think they both support it. I think it has its place, but it's gotten abused. It has its place in some cases. In specific circumstances, qualified immunity has its place. Like you don't need a convicted serial killer suing everybody. So you've got to have some amount. But I think it's being abused. It's the same here in Australia with our so federal law said, we can seal cases and nobody can talk about them and we'll chuck it in jail for contempt of court if you do. That's being abused here. It was meant for specific cases, specifically child abuse cases and family cases and stuff like that. So, but it's being abused. It's now being used for every freaking case, like the mushroom murder. Like that's not even a child abuser case. It's being used for every single case. It's getting overused. And that's what I think's happened with the qualified immunity thing. It's because it's just being abused, basically overused and abused. They need to revise it. So it's kind of like case law revises, old law. We have old written law, but then case law comes along and revises that law, and then case law comes along and revises that law. And we do find some Supreme Court rulings that revise qualified immunity. The Monell case is one of those. It would be prudent of Karen Reid's team to look into a Monell claim against the DA, and also, Section 1983, obviously, but as part of that, the model, that's where you start seeing qualified immunity starts to be reassessed, how it applies in specific circumstances. And we need more of that. We need more case law revising qualified immunity, not just for the police and their roles, but for the judges and the prosecutors and everything. That we need more revision going on at the SJC level. That's who's letting the team down. So it's not that they don't, it's that they don't do it often enough. So, all right. So meanwhile, Lindsay began calling his own contact, something he said he never before had to do as a line deputy. He reached out to Michael Doherty, the elected district attorney in the 20th Judicial District, and Daniel Rubenstein, the elected district attorney in, can we just say other lawmakers? And neither could help. Lindsay also called Mark Hubert in another district. Although Hubert was living in Summit County, he had been working in their district since before the Morphew case was filed, handling correctional facility homicide cases on contact. In July 21, Herbert agreed to join the prosecution team as a deputy district attorney. Respondent assigned Herbert to the Morphew case. So this is way too late, like way too late. You know, this should have all been in preparation for arresting Barry Morphew, right? Right, and the police unions, oh my God, they're the worst. They're the worst. And they need to stop drinking. I agree with that, indeed. Indeed. Less drinking and more case law. So yeah, it looks like they were reactionary to the case workload rather than preparatory for the case workload. When you know you've got a high profile case coming up and you're about to go arrest a guy, you want to have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed and your shit in a row, right? Like, it sounds like it was all reactionary and they were on the back foot the whole time. And of course, Eaton's team only has to, Iris Eaton, who represented Barry, only have to do this one case. And so they can sink all of their efforts into this one case. This is one of those rare exceptional circumstances where the state didn't have all the power and all the resources and all the everything at their disposal. Interestingly. So I can see how it got messy. It got out of hand. They just were not prepared for a high profile case in such a small town, I think. So, but I feel like Iris Eaton had the upper hand on them the whole time because they're struggling with this, trying to get their shit together. And she's just like, bam, 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 hitting them with everything under the sun. So, I can't knock Iris Eaton. She's a freaking fierce lawyer. Like, if you are in trouble and you need someone to fiercely defend you, I feel like she's one of those people. I also give that credit also to, oh my God, her name just fell out of my head. Ann Taylor, Koberger's defense lawyer. Like, these guys they will go out of their way to defend you. They will give you the most rigorous defense, and every defendant deserves it, whether you think they're guilty or not. You know, everyone starts out with the presumption of innocence, and so everyone deserves a good attorney. These guys are fucking bulldog attorneys. They are good attorneys. I am not going to knock them. A lot of the law tubers that we follow, also bulldog defense attorneys. Not all of them. Some of them are pro-prosecution, but they're also bulldog at it. So you can't hang someone for being really fucking good at their job. It's more about, for me personally, like, everyone starts with their presumption of innocence. It's more about how each side treats that presumption of innocence. I don't agree with your defense attorney lying on your behalf, putting out lies to the media, lying in motions. It's one of the things that I appreciated about Karen Reid's attorneys, right? Bulldog attorneys, but they didn't lie every time they opened their fucking mouths. You can pretty much guarantee that if they said something in a motion or said something in open court that we heard, they had a receipt for it. You pretty much guarantee that with Karen Reid's attorneys. There is receipts for everything. And that's what I appreciated about her attorneys. They were bulldogs, but they're also truthful. Like, you could rely on what they were saying. So these are rare qualities in attorneys. I loved it. Like to see more of it. I don't feel like Iris Eaton and Ann Taylor fall into that category. They're bulldogs, but I don't know that I can rely on what they say. Right. Where are we? Lindsay said he was desperate for help, literally begged to bring Edwards on. Oh, sorry. In August, Lindsay also contacted Daniel Edwards, a former assistant attorney general, deputy district attorney, and public defender, to assist. Wow, public defender, he's a defense lawyer. Because he was desperate. Edwards, whom witnesses uniformly praised as a giant in the Colorado prosecution community, agreed to join the team on the understanding that he would continue to live and work in the Denver metro area. Edwards was hired as a motions attorney. Others on the team were to provide him with the facts of the case, and he would then supply the law and argument and draft motions and responses. Although respondent provided Edwards with a laptop, intending that he would have access to discovery, Edwards testified that he was not able to log into action and never had access to the facts of the case. So what was he doing? How can you file a motion without access to the facts? Wow. This is why Iris Eaton. See, I don't know that Iris Eaton is that good a lawyer. I think she just shone here because they struggled with everything. They struggled with everything. She totally had the upper hand. Easy to do when dealing with Stanley, right? That's exactly my direction. She never stooped to Brennan's level. Oh, they didn't stoop to, right? I don't think they stooped to lying, did they? So, Oh, you're talking about Karen Reid. I thought you were talking about Iris Eaton, because I feel like Iris did on a few things, but Karen Reid's attorneys, exactly. They never stooped. They never stooped to his level. Absolutely. Hi. How's it going, Harley? All right. So if you're at work or whatever, Iris didn't get everything. No, Iris can't even do fucking basic math, Amber. Or whoever it was that she put on that particular part of the project couldn't do basic freaking 5th grade math. Or she deliberately lied about the math, hoping that the judge wouldn't pick up on it, right? I feel like she deliberately lied about the math. But anyway, you can say lawyers don't know their math very good. I don't know. I don't know too many lawyers who are like shit hot at math. You either went in one direction or another, right? You either went into law and had your nose in the law books, or you did what I did, technical, and had to have your nose in the math books, right? So intentionally, right? Exactly. I feel like she intentionally misled the court in a lot of her rulings. Exactly. All right. So the combined preliminary hearing / proof evident presumption great hearing in the Morphew case was held on August 9 to 10 and August 24 to 25, 2021. It's called the PEPG hearing. Was meant to assess whether the prosecution had demonstrated probable cause for the charges against Barry Morphew, and whether, for purposes of denying bail, the prosecution had shown that the proof against him was evident and the presumption great. Obviously, to prepare for that hearing, Lindsay requested and Stanley provided coverage of the Chaffey County felony docket for a full week. In that time, Lindsay organised all of the exhibits and prepared all of the witnesses, many of whom he anticipated would be named as experts. Lindsay's opinion was that the case, which was all about experts, would rise and fall on expert testimony because it was circumstantial. That's why. When it's circumstantial, it's a battle of the experts, right? Lindsay handled most of the hearing, but Hurlburt did the direct examination of a few witnesses, and Stanley examined 2 witnesses, including Walker, who had earlier left the DA's office in June 2021 to work for the Chaffey County's Sheriff's Office. Blech. Lindsay asked both respondents' witnesses to write out the questions that Stanley should ask them on direct examination. At the conclusion of that hearing, Judge Murphy reserved ruling until September 17th, 2021. Mid-morning on August 24th, in the midst of that hearing, King texted Stanley, "Feeling good?" Stanley replied, "Yes, only because the judge has basically indicated that he's done. That's good for us." That same day, King texted, "Now the noise. I heard Barry tried to stare you down this morning." Stanley replied, "No, I stand him down. I have tried to every single day." Jesus, Mike. I don't know. Jesus, Mike. Like, you got to realize that if you're having these conversations with people and it comes out and it's going to get subpoenaed. So, Jesus, Mike. Okay, Stanley and King agreed to do another Profiling Evil segment in late August 2021. At the disciplinary hearing, Stanley explained that although she received many media requests from several national outlets, including 2020 and Dateline, she never agreed to give interviews. She testified she was not trying to get famous or put herself out there. She noted, however, that she made an exception to a general media approach for King, and she emphasized that she appeared on his show to educate people about the criminal justice system. Also of note, and I don't like to give the woman credit for anything, but he's a cold case detective. Like that's his whole thing. He's a cold case dude, and she was specifically in the cold case department. So I don't find that unusual, to be honest. So on August 29, Stanley and King texted discussing what he should tell his audience about respondent and the Morphew case. During these communications, King recounted they agreed to cover topics involving the procedural aspects of criminal cases, including these types of hearings. Stanley recalled that she and King discussed the parameters of the show extensively, and she warned him that she could answer questions only about information in the Morphew case's public record. Stanley testified that before she recorded the segment with King, she conferred with Lindsay and Hurlburt about her participation. In advance of the show, King promoted the segment, advertising Stanley's appearance. According to King, some audience members complained about Stanley's return to the show, expressing concern that Stanley might prejudice the Morphew case by speaking publicly about it. Duh. When Stanley registered surprise that some of the pre-show comments were not good, King offered her the option to cancel. Stanley declined, remarking, "I'm not understanding why people are so pissed. and I obviously am not going to talk about anything that isn't already public information. She concluded the exchange with, "I don't ever back down. Maybe you shoulda, ma'am. Even King gave you the opportunity. Maybe you shoulda." So, she thinks she's Hutch, or is it Starsky? No, I remember that, Em, because you were saying that was her favorite show, right? She's right into them. I can't remember which one she thinks she is, but she concluded the exchange with, "I don't ever back down." At the disciplinary hearing, respondent expounded. She testified that she did not view King's audience as knowledgeable about her ethical constraints as a prosecutor, as she rejected the notion that the power of her office would confer on her comments as an extra measure of credibility in the public's eyes. Oh, the power of office is more credibility. That's kind of what D.A. Morrissey did, right? Used his office's credibility to defend the witnesses, the other suspects. On August 30, Stanley appeared on King's Profiling Evil YouTube channel. King said the show garnered about 23,000 views, around 1,000 of which were in Colorado. During the episode, Stanley explained various procedural concepts, including the meaning of direct and circumstantial evidence, the difference between a preliminary hearing and a grand jury proceeding, what occurs during a PH hearing, the information she can ethically discuss, and the doctrine of double jeopardy. Stanley also reported that she intended to add to the prosecution team voiced irritation that citizens would question whether she had probable cause to arrest Barry Morphew, defended her choice of attire during the 2021 Congress, boasted that she stared down Barry Morphew every chance she got, and mentioned Barry Morphew's short stature. She concluded the segment by noting that she was a little insulted that people would question whether she should appear on the show, and insinuated that anything out in the public is okay to talk about. I don't know. I don't know. Is it out in the public that he's not entitled to presumption of innocence? You know, stuff like that. I don't know. Again, let me just say, I didn't feel she overstepped too many boundaries in appearing on that show. I feel like she did the whole D.A. Morrissey, Barry Morphew's guilty, and trying to reassign guilt, and I feel that her comments were far less egregious. Let's put it that way. They may have been egregious either way because the court's saying that they are, but they were far less egregious in my opinion. If the shit that she said was egregious, then what Morrissey said was out there with the fucking pixies egregious, right? That's what I'm trying to say. After the podcast, Stanley texted King complaining that some nasty shit was posted about her in the show's chat forum. Yeah, get used to it. That's what the fuck YouTube is. Social media, Stanley. So not only do you not get how the tech works to run your cases, but you don't get how social media works. As she explained to King, her reputation was priceless to her, and she viewed the comments as borderline defamation. Well, sue them. Find out who they are, sue them. It's your prerogative. But don't just sit there and bitch about people having freedom of speech, lady. During or after Profiling Evil podcasts, Stanley authored comments using her own name and online avatar to respond to various members of the public who posted on Profiling Evil's chat forum. Her comments were extensive. Many demeaned or personally attacked audience members. Sometime between the show's airing on the 30th of August and September 30th, a YouTube member with the username, I can't even say that, posted a public comment on profiling Evil responding to Stanley's statements about Morphew. In a preliminary hearing, you are supposed to lay out enough evidence to take the accused to trial. The defense did a great job of debunking a few of the theories. Most of the reasonable observers of this case aren't even confident that the state laid out enough evidence to take this to trial. How do you expect them to win a case with zero DNA and zero body with a very weak preliminary hearing? I don't know why people go on about DNA. He's the fucking husband. DNA is going to be fucking everywhere. In the cases of like the Delphi murders and the Koberger, his DNA shouldn't have been there. He wasn't dating anyone. He wasn't meant to ever be in that house. Same with Richard Allen. His DNA shouldn't be there because he didn't know those girls and he shouldn't have been there. So there's no reason for it to be there. But when you're talking about in the Reed case, for example, John dated her. She lived in his house. Of course, his fucking DNA was going to be all over her in a car, and vice versa. So I don't know why people say stupid shit like this. But anyway, if there was some smoking gun that they could have provided more info at the preliminary hearing, causing the judge to actually send it to trial on day 4, him needing time is not a sign of a very strong case. He has read the holy affidavit. The holy shit affidavit already. So if you think there is something special in there, think again. It's best for the state to let this one go for now. Try the man again if you find better evidence. Well, whoever that smart person was, well said, because that was smart. Stanley Public responded to the comment, again using her own name. The judge explained why he was going to take his time with it. He actually should, because there was a lot of evidence admitted. I'm curious how long you've been a criminal law attorney, since you like to think that you know it. Look this up. Dante Lucas, convicted in Pueblo, Colorado, right next to my jurisdiction, less than a year ago for first-degree murder. Guess what? No DNA, no body, nowhere, blah, blah, blah. But here's the clincher. He was the last one to see Kelsey alive. I remember that case. And Barry was the last one to see Suzanne alive. Their partners are always the last ones to see them alive. Like, duh. Especially when they live in the middle of nowhere. Who's going to see them? The fucking koalas? Oops, you don't have koalas there. But you get where I'm coming from, right? Those items you listed may be important to you, but not for others. P.S. Dylan Redwine's father was also just recently convicted of first-degree murder in the death of his son. Same scenario. Didn't have any of the laundry list of items that you think are required for a conviction. I can come up with plenty more. Just let me know. This is more or less saying we can just rely on the jury. We don't have to have evidence. I disagree that they exactly. I disagree that they debunked much of anything too. Agreed entirely. And better evidence. Look, the evidence now is pretty solid. It's pretty good now. Like, it's still circumstantial. We don't have a prima facie video of him actually doing something. But it's pretty solid. It's getting it's a lot better than it was. Let's put it that way. He's pretty screwed. But anyway, I think what Stanley's saying, what I read her saying here, is that we can just put a fuck all amount of evidence in front of a jury and they'll convict. And we love that. Let the jury do the conviction. So I don't love that about her. I would like to see that they actually, have a good solid case that they can move forward with. And they're not just going, well, juries will convict a freaking ham sandwich. So at the disciplinary hearing, Stanley justified her post, drawing an important distinction between her public persona and the elected district attorney. Well, you should have actually used a pen name then, lady. and her own private activities as Linda Stanley, who was entitled to defend herself from personal attacks. She reasoned that in her responsive comments, she was acting as a person, not the elected district attorney, but she was using her elected district attorney name as evidenced by use of her personal picture, as opposed to her professional headshot and her personal email rather than her business email. But she also testified that her purpose in responding to the author was to correct the record to show that no body homicides could be prosecuted successfully, thus lessening the prejudicial effect of his comments to her client, the people of the state of Colorado. Her client, the people. Jesus, lady. On September 14th, soon after her appearance on Profiling Evil, Stanley exchanged Facebook Messenger messages about the Morphew case with Jules Wolfe, who we just showed a picture of in that news segment, creator of True Crime with Jules, or Jules in the Car, in the Car with Jules, which is a podcast available through YouTube and other public platforms. According to Stanley, she learned of statements Wolfe made suggesting that Stanley had not read Barry Morphew's arrest affidavit. Stanley testified that she believed that statement was super important to correct. Her job as a top prosecutor in a district was to make decisions about probable cause, so she feared the public's perception of her office would be diminished if people thought she had not been involved. I do not want incorrect information to be disseminated further, she testified. Whoa, control freak much? Get on top of that YouTube, lady. Control the tubes. Oh my God, we need a control the tubes posse. Goodness gracious. Guys, we're only up to page 16. This is all interesting stuff. This is not stuff that we knew that had gone on in the background. We didn't know this stuff. We knew the basics of what was going on. As the lawyers that I started out with started talking about, just the basics. That there's some deep shit going on here. So she's on Facebook talking with YouTubers and creators, and on YouTube talking with creators, and oh my God. Stanley thus reached out to Wolfe to know this inaccuracy. She also gave Wolfe her contact information so Wolfe could ask her questions. Wolfe promptly inquired whether Barry was getting ready to flee, and Stanley wrote, possibly. Respondent testified that her possibly was straight, neutral, and down the line. Wolfe made these text messages public, and they remained available for public consumption. Oops. Barry's defense lawyer moved for sanctions on September 16th, alleging that the prosecution had violated Judge Murphy's pretrial publicity order of June the 3rd. Yep, she sure did. The motion was based in part on Stanley's statements to the media, her written comments to the public on Profile Evil, and her messages to Wolfe. On September 17th, Judge Murphy heard argument about bond. Lindsay argued the matter, contending that Barry Morphew was a flight risk. The judge found probable cause for the charges against Barry Morphew, but he granted bond, concluding that the prosecution had not met its burden regarding the proof evident presumption portion of the hearing. Weak evidence, lady. The defense thereafter requested a $50,000 bond, while the prosecution requested a $10 million bond. Judge Murphy set the bond at $500,000 cash only, and he released a redacted arrest affidavit to the public shortly after the hearing. Also, September 17th, the defense requested that Judge Murphy address its motion for sanctions based on respondents' extrajudicial statements. Judge Murphy stated he had not reviewed the defense's motion, but he advised the respondent, well, I won't order it. It certainly seems reasonable to limit interaction and interviews with the media regarding a specific case that you are prosecuting. That is a normal route that I see most prosecutors take. So I'm not ruling on the motion. I'm not issuing an order other than the order I've already issued, but I am saying if there's a violation, it's going to be a self-inflicted wound. He said it pretty black and white, right? A lot of people got pulled right into it, but like, because I remember, you know, AK Rocks got dragged into that court hearing, didn't he? Didn't he get questioned by the judge as well? There was a lot of YouTubers got dragged into that. Pretty sad. Lindsay described Judge Murphy's advertisement as a lecture that dressed down the prosecution. Even so, when King later texted Stanley questions about the hearing, Stanley responded, not surprised, on bail. No, CH and our CBI witnesses, Cahill majorly screwed up on his testimony. He's not on the case anymore. Cahill was one of the investigators, wasn't he? Personnel changes on the prosecution team. So by October 2021, Lindsay resigned, giving 4 weeks' notice. In testimony, Lindsay expressed bitterness that Stanley had not provided the support he expected, and he bemoaned Stanley's lack of involvement in the Morphew case or the District Attorney's Office writ large. In his view, nothing happened on the Morphew case unless he made it happen. According to Lindsay, he told Stanley that he couldn't handle either the Morphew case or the Chaffey County felony docket, but not both. Stanley promised to make a call the next day, but failed to contact him. And when Stanley did not take prompt action to support him and could not be located, he placed a 2-sentence resignation notice on her chair. Lindsay said that Stanley texted him later that night, "If you don't tell me what's wrong, how can I fix it?" But Lindsay had already resolved to move on. Stanley agreed with Lindsay's narrative. She said that when Lindsay approached her, she asked him whether he preferred to keep the Morphew case or the Chaffey County felony docket. And according to Stanley, Lindsay told that he did not want to give up either, leaving her stymied, and then he dropped off a resignation letter that contained no explanation. Yeah, how about you just give me some fucking help? I don't want to give up either. Just send me more help. In retrospect, it sounds like it was money, she opined, noting that during a budget meeting some weeks before, the county commissioners refused to allot funds to increase Lindsay's salary for the amount he requested. He's doing double the work. Like, this lady has absolutely no self-reflection going on here at all. Jesus Christ. If you don't look after your workers, they stop working, right? Yes, that's what it was. Thank you. It was false accusations that Eaton made. You're exactly right. I remember it now. And I remember he talked about it after he came out of court, about what the accusations were too. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that stuff as we progress through this. Right now, we'll just stick with Linda Stanley's bloopers. This is like an 85-page document of Stanley bloopers. Lindsay's departure was a big blow, Stanley testified, because he was essentially handling the Morphew case and a full felony docket. Well, that's what he just frickin' said to you, that you said he didn't complain about. Further, Lindsay had been on the Morphew case since its inception, so replacing his institutional knowledge would be difficult. Stanley said she worked tirelessly to find his successor. We should have just found someone to help him to begin with. Walker testified that in Lindsay's absence, he had great concerns about the Morphew case staffing. It was not a good time to lose the case's lead counsel. Oh, now it's starting to make sense why they dismissed everything. They didn't have the staff to do it. Holy shit. Holy batshit. Holy batshit Linda crazy. Walker opined, and Lindsay's departure felt to him like starting over. Holbert, for his part, testified that after Lindsay left, Stanley did not anoint anyone to be lead counsel, although he assumed that role. Edwards had a similar impression. He was never informed how, if at all, Stanley had decided to staff the case or assign tasks, but he assumed that Holbert took over lead counsel duties. We're just assuming shit here, and Stanley's not doing anything to help any of them. Holy Batman. Hola, Tracy. Thanks for joining us. Holy Batman. As Lindsay's involvement in the Morphew case drew to a close, other personnel changes were afoot. Rains and Stanley arranged for a team of experienced investigators and paralegals from the 4th Judicial District Office to help organise and label discovery in the Morphew case. Stephanie Courtney, an investigator with that office, testified that she and her team began work in October 21, although she believed that, based on their availability, they could have started the project as early as the summer. According to Courtney, she and her team spent 2 weeks touching every piece of discovery that had already been produced, categorizing that discovery and indexing it. Along with other employees, she then paginated documents and bait stamped them using action. Courtney conceded some discovery and duplicated and produced twice because she did not know the case well enough to spot all the duplicates. According to Courtney, her team received new discovery through to at least March 2022, and the team continued to work on the Morphew case even after that time. In addition, Sheriff Spezzi managed to procure from Chaffey County commissioners $100,000 in extra funding for the Morphew case. Those funds went towards hiring Robert Weiner in late October or early November. Respondent recruited Weiner for... Wait, did Sheriff do it? Sheriff procured the funds, and Stanley recruited Weiner. Is it Weiner or Weiner? Stop your whining, whiners. A former senior chief deputy district attorney who was working for a private law firm in Denver. After Rains advised her to seek assistance from prosecution community alumni, Weiner agreed to work on the Morphew case from Denver on a part-time basis. Respondent, or Stanley, gave Weiner a computer to log onto Action, but he experienced technical issues when using the system for most of his tenure on the Morphew case. Weiner testified he did not have access to a complete set of discovery. Dun, dun, dun. Seems like nobody did. Nobody knew what the hell was going on. So, wow. All over the place. The DA screwed the pooch on this and got the treatment she deserved. Right, Tracy? And Amber says they didn't have the experts either. Dismissing the case was the smartest thing Stanley ever did. Right. Did you just read Grave Concerns, Olivia Nile? Grave Concerns. There's so many grave concerns. Olivia, this case has like so many similarities, and Judge Bev didn't act like these judges did, and the SJC didn't act like, I mean, it's so more. it's so more. It's so comparative. It's so contrasting. Oh my God, it's crazy. It's all over the place. But this is how it should have been dealt with. All of the ruckus going on over there. Where are we? Stanley testified after Weiner joined the prosecution team. She continued to oversee the Morphew case and received weekly updates and status updates. According to respondent Stanley, there was never any confusion about whose jobs were whose. They just sat there and testified they didn't know whose job was whose. Ma'am, so how can you say there's no confusion when they're sitting there telling you there was confusion? Or which lawyer was responsible for various aspects of the case? But other testimony shaded the situation somewhat differently. Holbert related that when Weiner came in, he inferred that Weiner assumed the role of lead counsel. His own job, he thought, was to handle discovery and review motions, which is what he was hired for in the first place, wasn't it? Conversely, Weiner testified that he absolutely was not the lead lawyer, as he was working remotely on a part-time basis and was already scheduled to try 2 other sizable cases in spring 2022. Weiner said that he was not sure who was making the important decisions in the case, although he discerned that Edwards was doing the bulk of the work and that Holbert was running the case on a day-to-day basis. Ultimately, Weiner believed that he was responsible for conducting the trial. From an outside perspective, Walker deemed it a mystery as to who took over the role of lead counsel, and he perceived that the prosecution team was confused about spheres of responsibility for various aspects of the case. For all intents and purposes, the prosecution team lacked a clear leader. We didn't have that issue with Morrissey as to who the leader was. We knew he was the leader. We knew that he had his hand up Hank Brennan's butt, moving his lips for him. We knew he had his hand up Lally's butt, moving his lips for him, and also, can't think of a name now, Loughran, I can't remember her name, the other chick in the room. It's kind of like, D.A. Morrissey had like way too much control of this one. And he controlled everything. He's even controlled the civil case and trying to get depositions from the civil case so that he could use them in the criminal case. And we'll talk about that later because that's a whole other area of grave concerns that he should not be involved in. But yeah, we had the opposite with D.A. Morrissey, where he was actually a control freak. Thank you, Olivia. Laura McLaughlin. That chick. She clearly had D.A. Morrissey's hand up her ass, moving her lips as well. So we had the exact opposite here. D.A. Morrissey, although incompetent in most things that he put his hands on, absolutely was the control freak in this whole thing. Who was helping him control the whole situation? I wonder, Jen McCabe. But anyway, moving right along. So this is one of the reasons, I guess, the whole case against Burry fell apart. They said they would dismiss the charges. They said that they're looking for the body. They were never looking in the right place. So all of the prosecution's claims that we think we know where the body is, we're just waiting for the snow to clear, that was all just excuses. But I know it's on the record. I don't know how many judges are going to go, too far outside the record and say like, yeah, but what about this and what about this? So I don't think that part of I don't think that part of the case falling apart because of her lack of leadership will play much into this current trial. But those experts that originally got ditched by the judge, that's definitely going to be an issue. Like this new county, hopefully they've got more resources, they've got more money, and they can get new experts. So Olivia, just so you know, this is well worth getting your teeth into if you're loving the data side of everything. This one shows us what the data should look like, how the text stream data should come out of that vehicle, how it's handed over, and what state it's handed over in, i.e. not PDFs and freaking Excel spreadsheets, for example. This is a great case to reflect on how everything was so fucked up in the Karen Reid trial. So setting pre-trial deadlines and Judge Murphy's recusal. So yeah, Murphy actually did recuse himself in the end, and that's how Judge Lama became involved. So so someone came on the prosecution team that this judge knew personally, and so that he had to recuse himself, something along those lines. We will get into, let's bookmark page 19, because I am nearly 3 hours into this. We haven't even got to the shenanigans, really. We just got to the prosecution's office was not prepared, fell apart. Linda Stanley just abandoned everybody, practically, or relied on them too heavily, let's say. Relied on them too heavily and didn't actually supervise. So these are some of the things that the opinion rested on, was, her lack of supervision. So it's good to get the deets, but the behind the scenes deets. And, there was a lot of rumors about, her communications with YouTubers and whatever, and what YouTubers were getting dragged into it and why, etc. There was a lot of that stuff going on. So we didn't know what was actually true and what wasn't. So it's good to see this in writing now by the court, and to hear the other side of things, what actually was going on at the level that the court was considering it anyway. So I have a little treat. I have a wee treat for you all. Let me find it. That we can switch to, because I am so over the reading part. We can come back to the reading. There's so much more to read, but let's do a little intro to who Barry Morphew is. I freaking hate the guy. I hate doing it. I don't want to do it because it's not about him. It's about Suzanne and her murder. So shit. I've got the video here. Give me a sec. I did have it open so that we could play it. I could just hit the play button and we'd be good. But then I accidentally closed it. So just give me 1 sec to find the freaking thing. Oh, I know where I've got it marked. Hang on. I've got it marked over here. Here we are. Wait. Share this tab. All right. So this is just it's within the same week that they found her bicycle. He's just got home. They've launched, just before they've launched this search party, or I think Tyson turned up because he heard they were going to launch a search party. He wanted to join in, and then he sort of accidentally tripped over Barry while he was there. So and this is his first interaction with the dude.
My name's Tyson Draper. I'm from Arizona.
Okay.
So
what happened?
Okay.
Yeah, do you mind putting that in your pocket?
Oh, not a problem. No problem. No, it's not on, bro. It's not on.
We've had a lot of media.
Yeah.
Moderates. And obviously this is very emotional.
Oh, absolutely, bro.
Private. But we've searched. It's never going to hurt to retrace searches. So we've searched a 200-mile radius.
What? Really?
All of the mountains have been covered so far. But obviously, we're going to miss things.
Right.
So let me show you what happened. And I do have a reward.
There is a reward?
$210,000 reward. Her bike was found at the bottom of the hill by that tree where the pink is.
Oh, really?
The first night there was a mountain lion. The officer seen it walk by the car, so we thought maybe she got attacked by a lion. We thought maybe she wrecked coming down this hill, a car coming around the corner fast, or maybe was disoriented and got in the river. We've covered all of this really good, this triangle, with search and rescue. So we're pretty comfortable that she's not in this triangle between the RV park, your truck, this road, and then the next road. But what seems to have happened from the investigators, and they don't give much, and I've got private people working for me, is maybe she was abducted right here. And they found an article going west of hers. They won't tell us what it is. So they sent another team after they found the article that covered this hillside all the way down to the river pretty good. My concerns were this way and that way if it was the cat, because the cats, they drag their prey up the mountain and out of people's. We can't find sign for the cat, but we got rain like right away.
Yeah.
Could have washed away sign.
So they found her bike just right against that tree down there?
Well, no, it was on the ground. It was, the wheel was facing, and the sheriff department, they screwed everything up. They shouldn't have touched it.
Oh, really?
Left it. It's evidence. They pulled it up, and then the sheriff we had cars over here. Well, the sheriff let everybody drive through here, covering all, or messing up all the evidence. They were walking all over this area, which if somebody abducted her, they would have had foot tracks. They would have fingerprints on the bike.
And
they let 10 other people touch the bike.
Oh, man.
I mean, we was really upset that first night. But I was in Denver, so
oh, you were?
I didn't get here until 9 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
And my friend's an Army Ranger, and he knows this stuff better than anybody. He did 400 tours in Iraq, Afghanistan.
Oh, is that?
So what I would say, if you want to help, I would say this way, getting the least covered on the mountainside.
So you don't know where that article was, though? Was it by the road, or they won't even? They won't say, huh? Well, Barry, I'm glad you filled me in, man. I was. Oh, you had somebody behind you. I was hoping I'd run into you because I can't even imagine what you're going through. That's what I've heard.
We're totally in love with our two best kids. Closest family. It's just one of them things where, and you know, they have to investigate the first.
Yeah, yeah. Well, get your name cleared, and then.
Well, and they told me that it's cleared. I don't know if it's on me or if it's me.
Yeah, well, they're going to, man. They're going to beat you because, I mean, you got to look at, especially in Colorado, there's been so many cases where, like Patrick Frazee, Christopher Watts, you know, these guys get on there and they act like, you know, they didn't do anything, and so I mean, naturally people are going to be skeptical in the beginning, you know, but
you just came to help?
Yeah, I was in the Pagosa Springs area, and I've been kind of hearing about this, and so I thought I'd just come help, man. And what can I do for you, bro?
We've got a good group of friends and stuff. The best thing that you could do if you're a hiker and you're an outdoorsman, just get out there and cover some ground.
Okay.
Yeah, find something. If you find anything, don't touch it. Take a picture of it, give it to the police, put a pin there, let them come, because if there's an article, they need to DNA it without the names.
Absolutely.
And we have found men's clothing. We found a group of men's clothes up by the lake. Pieces that they DNA tested and they found.
So Fooses is up that way?
You go up to the right.
Yeah.
And that lake's up there, and then the Fooses Trail, you can drive all the way to the trailhead. And this is the Colorado Trail across 50 where they park up top.
Yeah.
And that covers all the way to Denver.
Okay.
And we've covered, I had school friends come the first few days, so we had a bunch of guys that we covered that road with.
Up in there.
But the only thing, this is a tough one, and my friends aren't in shape like you. So getting up those sides of those hills and stuff is kind of tough.
Well, let me ask you a quick question, Barry. So you were in Denver, but how long before somebody noticed that she was gone? And
well, it was Mother's Day.
It was Mother's Day.
We had two daughters that were coming home from the trip, and I had that job in Denver that I wanted to get started on Sunday, set it up for my workers. My workers were coming in Sunday night. We weren't going to work Sunday night, they were working Monday, but I, being the owner, I wanted to get everything lined up so that they didn't have to stand and wait on me Monday morning, just get busy working.
Right.
So I told my wife, I said, listen, the girls are going to be home. They want to spend Mother's Day with you. Mind if I go instead of this? She said, that's fine. So everybody, she's not like it. And then the girls get home over together. And that's what we thought was going to happen. The girls were running late, so they texted me Happy Mother's Day. She didn't text back. So we went to, or they called my neighbors and said, listen, it's Mother's Day. I'm a little worried. And will you go check the house? So the neighbor went and checked the house. Saw that her car was there, but the bike was gone. She called me and said, hey, we're just a little worried. And I go, well, I am too. Why don't we just call the police? Just be safe. I will get home right now.
Yeah, that totally was. Man, bro, I'm really sorry, man. I can't imagine what you're going through, but it sounds like you got a really good support system.
Yeah.
And do you want me to leave my number or anything? And in case you need me, I'll be here for the next. And then give me your number. Write it down because my phone's charging in the truck. But just Barry, give me.
Yeah, I'll text you.
Yeah, text me your number, and then if I find anything, I will. I'll let you know.
Go ahead.
480-431-5344.
And your name again?
Ty. Ty.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
I know we're doing COVID and all that, but I can't imagine, man. Are you grandma?
Yeah, Barry's mom.
Barry's mom? Oh, Barry, I feel for you, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're genuine in what you're doing here, then I appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you're an undercover news person.
Oh, no. No.
You're not coming for me. They killed me.
Yeah. Oh, they will, Barry. They will, and probably the worst is yet to come. I hate to say that, but just ride the storm out, man. And the truth always comes out in the end, bro. So,
hey, thanks.
Hey, good to meet you guys. Take care.
So there you go. That was Tyson Draper. Now, he's kind of back, sort of ish. He's covered a lot of cases. He went down and filmed the Delphi riverbed and a whole bunch of stuff. So he does do a little bit of, boots on the ground because he's traveling in that area anyway. He was down there for family reasons at that time. So he does a little bit of true crime stuff, especially if it's in his area. So, but that was his video. He was one of the first people to speak with Barry. Barry's come up with all sorts of excuses in that little segment. He's already, got his excuses in order, saying it could have been a bobcat, it could have been, a lion, it could have been. He's got a list of them, and he's basically said, yeah, don't search this area because I already looked there. She's not there, so don't look here. There's a lot of weird stuff that he did, and that's what initially, set us all wondering what the heck he was doing. And I just found a recent documentary of a dude who killed his wife, who did the whole hostage video thing. So Barry did the, I don't mean that in the Morrissey sense now. I'm actually talking about a hostage video where he thinks he's gone on TV and said, you know, Suzanne, if somebody's got you, please let it go. And oh my God, it was so pathetic. But anyway, I kind of, it's very much like the same as this guy in like 2000, I think it was 8 or 9, did the same thing when he murdered his new wife. Oddly enough, she's an Australian girl. She moved from Australia to America to meet and marry him and ended up being murdered. So it was just very strangely similar the way Barry handled himself and did his, you know, initial press release like that. It was all just so weirdly similar. And a lot of people had said he listened, or he had mentioned, I think maybe, that he listened to true crime podcasts and got some of his ideas from true crime podcasts. That, incidentally, was not a true crime podcast that I was listening to. It was actually the investigation discovery channel. I can't remember what show, actually. Not 2020, but, you know, like 48 Hours or something along those lines. But it was just interesting that I tripped across this other one where the guy went on TV and said the same things that Barry Morphy said, like assuming that she'd been kidnapped by somebody. After standing there and telling the police and anyone who turned up to search for her that she was probably taken by a cat, a lion, a big cat of some sort. So yeah, weird. Dude also hates chipmunks. I think they're actually pretty cute. And, you know, it kind of reminds me of like here where I live in the bush, there's these little things called bush rats. And they don't look like rats. So in the city, you've got these things that actually look like rats. They're these long, skinny, ugly-looking rats. But here in the bush, they kind of look like miniature wallabies. Like they look like a tiny, miniaturized, like the size of your thumb wallaby or kangaroo. And it's really hard to kill them. Like I can't do it. They get on top of stuff. They get into your roof. They get into freaking everything. They're a pain in the ass. They've eaten all the hood lining out of from under the bonnet of my car. They chewed on my wires in the car. They've just destroyed the place because I can't kill them. But anyway, Barry Morphew likes to kill chipmunks. Apparently, he will run all over the house with his gun, firing off 22 bullets, hell west and crooked, just to shoot at chipmunks, apparently. So, I don't know. Are they destructive like the rats are? Possibly. I don't know. But yeah, there was just a lot of weird things about Barry. And now we know that Suzanne was buried. And now we know that she was not only buried, but she was also moved. So, and Linda Stanley is largely responsible for this case going haywire and steering off track. And if he gets away with it, everyone's going to blame her because of all of this crap that she got up to. And revenge she tried to take on the judge. And like, it was just too much. So I do believe some of this the defense will try to use in the upcoming trial. I don't know how much of it they will successfully use. I don't know how much of it will be applicable, but we will continue reading. I will book another live stream to continue reading the SJC document. Oh, sorry, the Office of whatever it is. I forget what they're called. The Office of Judicial something or other. We will continue to read that and pull out what parts could come up in the trial, and also reflecting on, you know, how badly Judge Bev judged this Karen Reid case and all the things that DA Michael Morrissey got up to that spell far more egregious shit than what DA Stanley got up to. Sorry. Give me one sec. I need to wet my throat again. So yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll get back into the document. I'm up to page 19. I think, was it 19? Yes, I'm up to page 19, setting pretrial deadlines and Judge Murphy's recusal. We'll get back to that. We'll talk about how these judges behave decently and why Judge Murphy recused himself, because he's a decent judge, because he was doing the right thing, where Beverly Coney absolutely did not. And also where Judge Lama was following the rule of law rather than taking a side and being biased, and how Linda Stanley misinterpreted all of that and ended up where she did. But yeah, that's it for today. We shall read from page 19, so we should get another 20 pages in tomorrow. Let's say tomorrow, I'll book it in for tomorrow. We should get another 20 pages in tomorrow, which will go through, the way the judges behaved, which I believe was decent, and maybe hone in, drill down on some of the things that I think they could use in trial to try and free Barry from prosecution. And let me just make sure we book that in. Let's get some music racked up. Let's get some music racked up. I want to play a Turtle Boy song, a song I wrote for Turtle Boy. I want to play a Turtle Boy song because we still have Turtle Boy's trials coming up. Turtle Boy is not free yet. So I'm going to play the song I wrote for Turtle Boy to encourage all to go over to his channel, follow his links, send him some dosh for his defense. And let me get this song. Stop. Share screen first. And I'll book the rest in for tomorrow. Let's get jiggy with it tomorrow, guys, and continue on. Now, I'll probably have some more background information about Barry himself as we go on, and the defense that he's putting up and how all this is going to work out while we travel through this document, because there's a lot of reading. We do need to have a little downtime from the reading occasionally, so these will be interesting, backstories to go with the story as you're learning about it. So Olivia, if you're still listening, this is going to be one of those. Hang on, I got someone at the door. Let me hit the play button and I'll come back to you.
And I will not be intimidated. I will not be silenced. And we will continue on our journey for justice for John O'Keefe and for Karen Reed.
Tick, boom, motherfuckers. Ain't no slowing down, gotta let them know. They may not like the things I say, but I won't stop. I'm here to stay. I'm gonna grind on, gonna shine on. Every single day, all the time. They can hate all they want on, they ask my light gon' shine. On they ask my light gon' shine. Ain't no slowing down, gotta let them know. They may not like the things I say, but I won't stop, I'm here to stay. They don't like the things I say, they want me to stop, but I won't, I'm never gonna stop. I'm gonna grind on, gonna shine on, every single day, all the time. They trying to bring me down, but I rise above it now. I'm never slowing down, you can't stop this hound. I'ma keep moving forward no matter what they say. I'll be running their butts until my dying day. Tick, tick, boom, motherfuckers, every time I step in the zone. They don't like my style, but I'm in it for the long ride. I'm gonna grind on, gonna shine on, every single day, all the time. They can hate all they want on, they ask my light gon' shine. I'll keep pushing, keep grinding, Ain't no stopping this fire blazing. I'll show them all what I'm about. They can doubt me, but they can take me out. I do it for the love, I do it for my people. I'm staying true to me, and that's my sequel. Tick, tick, boom, motherfuckers. Ain't no slowing down, gotta let them know. They may not like the things I say, but I won't stop. I'm here to stay.
Boom! What's up, Turtle Riders?
Tick, tick, boom, motherfuckers. Ain't no slowing down, gotta let them know. They may not like the things I say, but I won't stop, I'm here to stay. Tick, tick, boom, motherfuckers. Ain't no slowing down, gotta let them know. They may not like the things I say, but I won't stop, I'm here to stay. I'm gonna grind on, gonna shine on, every single day, all the time. They can hate all they want on they ass, my light gon' shine. On they ass, my light gon' shine. Ain't no slowing down, gotta let them know. They may not like the things I say, but I won't stop, I'm here to stay.
Boom!
Wheat mix kid? Stop. So there you go, guys. Sorry about the interruption there. I had someone at the door. Got some mail delivered. All right. So we will come back to the rest of this document. I'll book it in for tomorrow, probably a little earlier. I'll see how I go with time. Hopefully I don't get insomnia tonight and held up during the day before I get there. So I'll try and book it a little earlier so it's at a sort of decent hour for everybody. Enjoy your day, everyone, and catch you tomorrow. Ciao.